Welcome to Strange Darkness Radio. Tonight, your hosts are Carolyn Gray and Amy Tiedemann, with Bobby taking a back seat and letting Carolyn and Amy take the reins for what promises to be an exceptionally entertaining show. In collaboration with the Semi-Skeptic podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo Chris and Aaron from across the pond, we embark on a riveting exploration into the mysterious realm of Ed and Lorraine Warren. On tonight's show, we fearlessly confront the perils that Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators, faced throughout their illustrious career. From haunted dolls that seem to harbor malevolent forces to ghostly apparitions that defy explanation, our journey takes us deep into the heart of the supernatural. So, settle in, relax, and brace yourselves for a profound dive into the unknown. This is Strange Darkness Radio, where the line between skepticism and belief blurs, and the paranormal comes to life.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Semi-Skeptic podcast with me, Chris.
And me, Aaron.
And today we are joined by Strange Darkness Radio. We are joined by Amy and Carolyn.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your show is all about?
So kind of similar to you guys, we investigate paranormal and mysterious topics. You know, anything otherworldly, anything unexplained, we're into it. So, truth seekers trying to find the answers.
Yeah, it's like a just a nice forum as well, just to connect with other people that have had these crazy experiences, and even if you haven't had those crazy experiences, just interested in it. I think it's a good platform to share and learn. So
it is fascinating as well. You know, even if you don't necessarily believe some of the stuff, it is fascinating reading people's encounters with things, and yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is great. How long have you been doing your show for?
Not long. Bobby started it. I think he's been doing it for a couple of years, but Amy and I are pretty new. I've been doing it almost a year, and then Amy's our newest member. Amy, how long has it been?
Let's see. It's been about, I think, 3 months. So I am definitely a rookie here. So I currently do the bonus episodes, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm definitely a rookie.
But yeah, like Amy said, we like to get into paranormal topics. We like to have people come on the show and share their stories if they've had any strange experiences. We get into anything strange or unusual, you know, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, unsolved mysteries, you name it. So
all the best stuff.
Anything basically interesting, really.
Yeah.
The important stuff.
Right. Life's great unanswered questions.
Have you guys had any experiences that got you into this sort of stuff, or was it other people's experiences?
Amy?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I did have a few experiences, and I did share them on our podcast. And just me sharing that is how I actually ended up connecting. And, I started co-hosting these episodes. But yeah, as a young girl, I did have a few experiences, and but nothing really as an adult. But I think there's been about 3 experiences that I shared in a previous episode. How about you, Carolyn?
I have had one sort of strange experience in a cemetery with a friend. We were at a cemetery, and I don't know if you guys want me to get into the story or not, but basically...
Yeah, please do.
And I've shared my story on Strange Darkness as well, but basically we were at a cemetery. We were just walking around at night. It was closed. We weren't supposed to be there, but basically there's a way to get in there around the fence. So we were wandering around. We were alone, and it's a pretty big cemetery. And we were there for like an hour, and everything was fine. And then we got up to this kind of newer area of the cemetery, and I got a really bad feeling. Like I just started to get this dread feeling, and I was telling him, you know, hey, I think I want to leave now. I'm not having fun anymore. And he was telling me, hey, don't worry. As long as we're being respectful, nothing is going to mess with us. And he didn't even finish his sentence, and something screamed at us. Like it was so loud and it was so close to us, but we didn't see anybody. We didn't hear any footsteps or rustling. And, you know, it was night, but it wasn't that dark. I mean, if there was someone around, we would have seen them. And it was just a loud scream. And I got so scared.
Like a human scream.
It sounded human, but it wasn't saying any words. It was so strange. It was just like a noise. But yeah, it sounded human. And I turned and looked at him, and he just had this look on his face like he was trying to figure out what it was. Like he almost looked excited, and I was terrified. So I just grabbed him and had to like drag him out, and we ran. But now I kind of wish that we would have stayed and looked around a little bit. But yeah, that's my one experience. But I've always been interested in paranormal, spiritual, anything unusual. And I've met a lot of people who have shared their experiences with me, and I've seen firsthand evidence that people have shown me. So I may not have my own experiences, but I do believe in this stuff wholeheartedly, and I've seen and heard other people's evidence. So what about you guys? Do you have any experiences to share?
I've got one. And I was so I'm an electrician, and I was working at an old RAF base that was used during World War II. We was doing some electrical work, and just out the corner of my eye, I think I see anyway, it looked like an old lady, sort of looked like, I don't know, maybe a maid or a cleaner sort of thing, just like sort of dusting the window or whatever. But it was so quick, it was like blink and you would have missed it sort of thing.
And she was gone?
And that is the only... Yeah. It was literally, I could just see in the corner of my eye. By the time I sort of turned to look, it was gone. So it's kind of... it's hard to say whether like when people ask me, I've always been a bit like, well, I don't know if what I saw is what I actually saw, sort of thing. So it's a bit of a strange one. And I'll be honest, it's only since doing this podcast that I've actually sort of started talking about it, really? To be honest. But yeah, that's really my only real sort of paranormal experience.
So you guys are interesting because from what Aaron has told me, Aaron, you're a skeptic, right? You don't believe in any of this stuff, or you're kind of like a need to see it to believe it. But Chris, you do, right? You believe in all of this, and you've had your own experience. Or how do you feel? I
don't know. I don't know. I'm very much on the fence with it. Because obviously I have sort of had an experience, but I was going through a lot at the time, and I don't know if maybe I was just... I don't know. I'm very much on the fence with it.
Have either of...
I want to believe. I think it would be cool as fuck.
Right.
But...
Want to believe.
How long ago did that happen to you?
7 years ago?
Yeah, 6-7 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
And since you've been doing this podcast, has either of you heard any stories from someone else that you believe, or that you think that at least they believe it, or like you haven't seen or heard anything that convinces you, Aaron, that this might be real?
Well, I don't think, for the most part, people are making it up. I do genuinely believe these people believe it happened, and I'm not saying they're wrong. And because I don't know if ghosts are real, if they're not real, because I just don't know everything. But at the same time, for me, it's like, well, I haven't seen anything for me to believe in it. and I'm not just going to believe in something for the sake of it. I need to see stuff. And for me, it's always, you know, whenever I think back, but like real sort of like all these ghost hunters who go out and they go these constant hunts and come back empty-handed. I just think if every nature photographer did that and came back empty-handed, we'd all be questioning whether or not deers exist. But we know deer exist because we keep getting photos of them, and people who go out looking for them keep finding them. But these ghosts are supposed to be around us all the time, and they're always doing things. And it's like, well, again, I mean, the evidence could be out there, and I haven't seen it because, of course, I've not seen or heard all the evidence. But just from what I've seen, it's just I kind of need a little bit more.
You're just not convinced.
You know?
I feel like Aaron needs to maybe. Have you ever used a Ouija board or anything like that?
Have you tried?
I mean, maybe you need to kind of open up a portal, you know, and it kind of be more inviting of that experience, and that'll kind of change things.
If this is a euphemism for taking drugs, then yes, I've done that plenty of times. But if you mean an actual Ouija board, then no, I haven't. And who was it who made the Ouija board? Was it what company was it?
Toy company.
Mattel or not
Mattel.
but,
one of those types, I think, wasn't it? Or Tomy. Or
I bought my first Ouija board at
because
Toys R Us. I remember that when I was a kid.
Really?
I think you still need to use the one you have, actually. But I was saying, because I definitely believe Ouija boards open up portals to things. So I was just saying,
Amy, have you ever played with a Ouija board?
Yeah, no, I have played with it. I think I shared the story last time. I did play with one in 7th grade. And I was asking the Ouija board questions, just silly things that 7th grade girls do, asking about boys. And, I was asking about my ex-boyfriend and, who he might have a crush on. Oh, yeah. And the Ouija board actually, me and my friend were playing it, and it actually spelled out a very specific name. I mean, I guess it's possible, it just could have been in my subconscious. But I mean, I honestly felt like I was barely touching that planchette, and it just very clearly spelled out a name. So, I mean, I've always been a believer in Ouija boards, but I do feel like they open up portals to things. So, I'm always curious, like maybe, I would love to see a skeptic use a Ouija board and see what happens, kind of like an experiment. I think that would be pretty interesting.
Well, I'll film it later because it just reminded me. I've got a record by a band called Caracangren. But when you open it up...
It's a Ouija board.
It's a Ouija board.
Oh, there you go then.
So I'll get a shot glass out later. I'll have myself a joint, go upstairs, light a candle, and start looking for the devil.
Let us know what happens.
I think that should be your next episode, actually.
Yeah,
I'll film it and see what goes down.
Yeah, no, I would check that out.
See if I can conjure them up.
See, I have a Ouija board here that I've been waiting to play with, but I feel like you kind of need more than one person for it to work. But I am kind of curious.
No, you can do it by yourself.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm curious. Like, would anything happen if I just got it out?
That's a 2-player game, is it?
Well, you and the ghost, so that's 2 people.
Well, I mean, are you afraid, Karen? Yes. Or are you open to doing that?
So can you do a solo campaign on a Ouija board?
You could, but I'm scared. So yeah, that's why I haven't tried it yet. But it's tempting. It's just sitting there staring at me. I haven't used it, so maybe one of these days. Maybe we should both record. Aaron, you play with yours one night. I'll play with mine, and we'll come back with the results and we'll share notes. But
and then we'll play a game of Operation.
But yeah, so I'm interested to see what everyone thinks of this topic today, because we are discussing the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're like the original ghost hunters. And I know that Amy and I are believers, like 100% we both believe, but Chris and Aaron are more skeptical. So I'm curious to see what we're all going to think of this at the end of the show. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, should we just get into it?
Yeah, let's just jump into it. Yeah, let's go for it.
So
go for it. Give us a
I've got a great
give us an intro to these motherfuckers and let's do this.
Got a great script for y'all, so hang on to your seats. Basically, I'm going to take us through the cases, and then I just want to get everyone's opinions at the end. Like, if you think it was real, if you think it was fake, if you think people were playing tricks, whatever. So, but Ed and Lorraine Warren were they were a couple. They were a paranormal investigative team, and they started doing their work in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. So really before anyone was into all this ghost hunting stuff, they were kind of the original ghost hunters. So they were both very religious, very Catholic, and they met when they were teenagers and got married, I think, when they were 18 and 19 years old. And they stayed married, until both of their deaths. So they were a team, for decades. And Ed Warren supposedly grew up in a haunted house as a child, and that's what sparked his interest in the paranormal. And then he met Lorraine, and Lorraine Warren was a clairvoyant and a psychic medium. And from a young age, she would say that she was able to see people's auras, and she would talk about, speaking to dead relatives and things like that. But her family didn't really accept it. Like I said, they were very Catholic, so she kind of learned to just keep it to herself. But when she met Ed, they both had this interest in paranormal and spiritual things, and so she actually started to express it more and use her, clairvoyance more. So the two of them would travel around, and Ed was a painter, and he would paint houses and landscapes, and he would sell his paintings. And they started to use this as a way to get their foot in the door in these old, historic homes. Basically, Ed would paint the home, and then Lorraine would take the painting up to the owners of the house and say, "Oh, my husband made this painting, and, what a beautiful house." And they'd start asking questions and kind of get invited in. And that's how they started. And the more they kept doing this, they started becoming sort of well-known, and they worked on some very famous cases, which we're going to get into today. The first case that they're very famous for is the Annabelle Doll, which I'm sure we've all heard of the Annabelle Doll, right?
Yeah.
So the story goes that in 1970, a nurse was given a Raggedy Ann doll by her mother. The mom found it at a garage sale, which is always great. That secondhand creepy doll. Who knows where that thing's been, right? And when the nurse brought it to her apartment, she and her roommate started experiencing weird things. They would notice that the doll had changed positions, and then eventually it got to where the doll was actually found in a different location, even though neither of them had touched it. So it would be in one room, and then they'd go out, and then they'd come home, and it was sitting in a different room. And at first, they really didn't think much of it. But I think eventually it did start to spook them and creep them out. So they asked a medium to come to the house and tell them about the doll. And the medium told them that basically where their apartment building used to be just an empty field. And this little girl named Annabelle had died in the field, and she was the one that was kind of playing with the doll. The nurses felt bad for this little girl, and they told her that she could play with the doll, and basically invited her to move in with them, which was a mistake, because shortly after this, the activity around Annabelle started to get much worse. Not only was the doll moving around, but the nurses would go out, and then they'd come home, and they'd find their apartment was a mess. Things were moved around, furniture toppled over, things on the ground.
think there were also notes, right? They would begin to find notes around the house.
Sort of handwriting, wasn't it?
Yeah, the notes would say, "Help me," and they would be scattered around the apartment.
Yes, and these notes were written on parchment paper, like old parchment paper that neither of the roommates owned. So it was very creepy. And then it would progressively get even worse. They would hear loud banging noises at night, knocking on the doors. And the nurses actually had a male friend that would come over, and he said that he always felt creeped out by this doll. And he said that when he would come over, he would get scratches on him, out of nowhere. And one night he was sleeping on their couch, and he had a dream that the doll was strangling him. And it was a terrifying nightmare, and he woke up in a sweat, and he was covered in scratches. So this is when the girls called Ed and Lorraine Warren. And the Warrens came over and told them that the doll was not haunted by a ghost. It was haunted by a demon. It was possessed. And they took the doll with them to their home, and they put it in their museum of creepy things. And the doll is still there. It's in a glass case. And when people visit, they're actually warned not to look at the doll. Don't make direct eye contact with it. And they're warned not to touch the glass and not to open the case. So a lot of people really believe in this curse of the Annabelle doll. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of curious, why out of everything that they've collected, why is that one locked up? I mean, where did they even come up with that? Did they had people come and visit? And before they even I would love to know more about how that happened. Did they just come home and put it in a glass case right off the bat? Or did they just put it in their museum and people would come over and start experiencing bad things? I want to know the documentation of how that happened. To me, it seems a little bit like a marketing gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm just really curious, when they.
Sorry. Well, it's something like that. There's other, famous haunted dolls or whatever. And supposedly if you mess with them, if you talk to them, if you take pictures of them, they will haunt you, and people will write letters to these museums apologizing to the dolls. Right. So I think it kind of started.
Oh, yes. I have heard that before.
But I also do agree.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I was going to say, even if it's a marketing gimmick, I'm still going to follow the rules. If I go there, I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to stare at the doll. Just in case any of that is true. You know what I mean?
Apparently there's a story of, I want to say a vicar. I might be completely wrong, but apparently a vicar or someone went and visited the doll when he was at the museum, sort of laughed it off or whatever. And I believe on the way home, he got in a real bad crash or something and claimed the brakes were cut and things like that. Yeah, apparently, when I was watching a little documentary about it. The only issue I have, so let's just say a demon has taken possession of this doll. I don't think a little glass cabinet is going to do much. I'm not to sound but it's probably not the...
That makes sense, because if the doll did do something to the guy's car brakes, what's to stop them from doing anything else?
And that's if the story's true. Do you know? This bloke may have just said it,
Right.
I've heard that story. That sounds familiar with the brakes being cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was a vicar or a priest or something like that, and he laughed it off as nothing, as a child's doll, and that was it. And then on the way back, it was coming to a busy junction or whatever, went to apply the brakes, and there was no brakes. Now, it could just be a complete coincidence that his brakes happened to seize up. He might have had a real beaten up old car, and it was just pure coincidence. It could be he made the whole thing up, or maybe
we just had our brake discs replaced because they're made of organic substance. They eventually turn to jelly. We've had to have them all done over. Anything could happen.
Could just be bad timing.
I'd get that doll straight out of the glass case.
Well, that's it.
Stare straight in the eye and French it.
Well, would you go and talk to the Annabelle doll, and would you look her in the eye?
So this is the thing.
Like a crazy person. Walk in there talking to dolls.
All right, Annabelle.
Here's a fag.
This is the thing. Like, even though I don't necessarily believe it, if I was in the museum, I probably still wouldn't make eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Just to be safe.
Even though I don't believe it, there's still that little part of me that's like, I'm just gonna walk past it.
Straight up to the glass, mate.
Oh, you.
Yeah. Pressing pickle, not giving a fuck.
Yeah, I would really like to hear more about the nurse Donna and her roommates. Like, I'm curious if they ever came out and publicly said anything. I would like to hear from I wish there, when you search the internet, the story is just relayed, but you don't hear anything from them directly. So that's I wish we had more information on that.
I wonder if anyone ever interviewed them or talked to them.
Right, because I mean, it's such a popular story. It's been around for decades. You would think like these people would come out and say, "Oh yeah, I'm Donna," and happened. That story is true. But we've never heard anything from these original people. So, I mean, to me, it would be very easy to just buy a doll and come up with that story. I mean, I think I did hear something about a few years before the story came out, there was a Twilight Zone episode about a haunted doll. Okay. So, a lot of skeptics like to say, oh, that's where Ed and Lorraine got the inspiration from, this Twilight episode. Yeah. So, I've just always thought that. I wish, if that is a true story, you would think that someone would come out and say, yeah, that was based on me. I gave the doll to the Warrens,
And I think there's a few things that could possibly be explained, as for the doll moving on their own, as much as they said they weren't in the flat or apartment, it might have been one of them playing a little trick. You don't know. And the boyfriend or whatever you want to say, the one who keeps
getting covered in scratches.
Yeah, the one.
I wonder where those came from.
Yeah, we weren't having an affair.
He was cheating on his girlfriend, and she's like, "I'm gonna get him back at night."
It could be something stupid, or it could just be in the middle of the night. He just randomly scratched. Maybe he had slightly long nails.
It is.
Don't get me wrong. Without being there, you ain't ever gonna know, are you? And that's the thing with anything like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely can understand the skepticism around this kind of story. You don't have any of the original people saying anything. There's no documentation, I would like to see, I wish there was more on this, but this one I can understand why people are hesitant to believe this one.
Yeah, that's a good point, because for all the minimal research that I did for this, I never found a firsthand account from any of the nurses or the boyfriend or whoever. So that's true. It's always just a story that seems to be passed down and retold. And
but I would definitely like to go visit that doll, though. I think true or not, it's a very famous story. I mean, they had the movies about it, or the one movie about it. So yeah, I would still go visit that doll.
Yeah,
definitely. Well. It's a folkloric icon, isn't it? I mean, like you say, whether you believe in it or not, there's still a lot of history attached to it, and
absolutely,
we love stuff like that. So I'd love to go there, see what else they've got, because these people got up to things, and it's just like, look at this. There's just be a whole room of history, and it'd be like,
oh yeah, I would
this is cliche, isn't it? But if walls could talk and stuff, like, what would all of these things tell us in here? It is amazing.
I would love to see the Warrens Museum. It's still there, right? I mean, they still have that and all their things.
I believe so.
I believe
think
it
it's
is.
the stepson who runs it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, damn
Yeah,
right, mate. It's a
so-
cash cow. Not
Yeah,
gonna
we know that.
Well,
I'm
that's the
sure.
thing, though. Like, even if, just say the Warrens did make up the whole Annabelle thing, but ultimately, back when they were alive, like they would have had to pay the bills, and why wouldn't you open a museum and
Yeah.
cash
Right.
in a little bit?
What's
really
interesting
blame
is
them.
that the museum was out of their actual house,
Yeah.
though. So,
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So but yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
it's like the
definitely on
basement or
my.
something, isn't it? Or like one of the
the
end
basement.
down like a certain wing of their house has been like converted. They've like done it all around.
In the Conjuring movies.
Yeah, I think
wasn't their daughter's old room
Right.
actually, or something. Can't remember. And like they put it all in there and something. I can't remember, but I know that there was certain significance to the room as well as to why they put it into that one particular.
And I know that they get
But
the
I
room,
can't
or
remember.
when they were alive, they would get the room blessed like every week or something. I'm curious if you guys know, because in the Conjuring movies, they make it seem like it wasn't really a museum for people to come and just look at stuff. It was more like they kept things in that room to keep everything safe, and they actually didn't really like to let people in there. But it's not like that, right? It's a museum. Was it always a museum?
Yeah, it's an actual museum. I don't know when it became a museum, but they were definitely profiting from that. So, I think in one of the movies, obviously there's a lot of fiction in these movies, everything's embellished, but one of the movies had a scene that there was like the room was like torn apart, some supernatural occurrences. Do you remember that scene? Like one of the teenage girls, like a babysitter, was snooping around the room, and
In the Conjuring?
I'm trying to think, but
You're talking about the movies?
it may not have been the actual. It was one of those, yeah, one of the Conjuring movies, maybe like part 2 or something. There was one about like a babysitter or something.
In the
wasn't there?
first one, there's a
It's
scene
one of
where
those
like
movies.
It's been
the
so long.
girl sees like a ghost holding the Annabelle doll, and then she runs and tells her grandma who's watching her. But I don't know if that's the scene you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the first one. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. But I do remember there were like 2 girls. They had on their bell bottoms, and the parents were out of the house, and one of them decided to be nosy, so she went down to the room, and all kinds of bad things started happening. So
Maybe that's one of the
just
Annabelle
wonder,
movies.
is that like?
But
Yeah, no, I'll have to look into it. But anyway, definitely a place to go check out if you are into supernatural items and occurrences, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like those curiosity shops that you can go to, and they've got like shrunken heads and stuff.
it's just like that.
I can spend hours in those. I can spend hours in those sort of places.
Yeah. Are there in England, are there places like that you can go visit where, like a museum like the one we're talking about where they have haunted items?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's all sorts of curioso places like that. My mum and stepdad, they hunt them out and go to them all the time. They're into all that kind of stuff. My stepdad in particular.
Oh, wow.
He's got his own podcast called the Gentleman Medium. He's a medium and whatnot.
Oh,
and
fascinating.
psychic healer and stuff. I mean, one man's psychic healer is another man's con man. But
I was going to say, your stepdad's a psychic medium and you don't believe in this stuff? How's that?
Right.
Oh, I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
You must have interesting get-togethers.
Yeah, we have great conversations. Like, he'll like talk to me about stuff, and then I'll come in with my boring science, and he'll be like, "You can't ruin it." And
that's fascinating.
Hey, you guys, I'm going to sound so ignorant and American right now, but do you guys live near London? You do, right?
I'm about an hour.
You're closer to it.
Yeah,
than
I'm about an hour
okay,
away.
so that's not too far
from London.
Is that where they have those like underground tunnels or whatever, where they kind of built on top like a new city? You know what I'm talking about? There's tunnels. There's some tunnels in London that are supposed to be super haunted, and it's like they have some history to them.
Are you thinking of the Paris catacombs?
No,
is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, there's catacombs.
No, it's I know about those.
There's some famous one.
I know there's
okay.
there's many abandoned underground
Tunnels.
tunnels, like from the old tubes.
They do tours and stuff, and I've always wanted to go, and so I was just curious if either of you has been on one of those, because I wanted to ask about
I'll
it.
be honest, I've not really heard about it, to be totally honest.
Maybe it's just an American thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I have to look into
so much history in London, though. I mean,
right.
You could get out the train station, throw a rock, and you'll hit something historical.
Yeah, that's so true. Jealous of you guys.
Yes, but don't be a shithole.
It generally is a shithole. Yeah.
A historical shithole.
Nobody wants to be in London. Okay.
I don't know about
historical
that.
shithole, but
interesting.
A shithole nonetheless.
Well, I think many people would disagree with you on that one, but
well, they'd be wrong.
Yeah, you might be a little bit wrong there.
You guys can say it. We can't. No comment.
Yeah. Very interesting. Have you guys made your way out to the States here? Any trips?
Yeah. I've been Florida when I was younger to do Disney World.
Oh, that's a shithole.
I've been to. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like everyone, it seems to be like a joke. Like when I'm on Instagram, I see a lot of people ripping on Florida, and I was like,
"That's where all the serial killers are from."
Yeah. I've been New Jersey. I was there for about 3 months, but while I was in New Jersey, I was getting the ferry over to New York, like Manhattan, quite a bit. I loved Manhattan. I thought it was wicked.
Yeah, New York is cool.
Yeah.
I loved how chaotic it was.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. But no, I really enjoyed it. And but I am going back to Florida next year with my kids, so they can experience the rides and all that.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Just love that.
Yeah, just watch out for the crocodiles and the serial killers, and
you're
good
exactly
to go.
Why I'm not going. You won't catch me.
Not crocodiles, alligators. I'm sorry, alligators. Yeah.
I don't want no cock-sucking reptiles that can fucking eat me.
Yeah, they're in the backyards there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
I've got a nice little setup here where I can go out and not worry about things eating me.
I'm with you on that one. I could not live in Florida just for that very reason. Yeah.
Fuck alligators.
I was born in Florida, but we moved when I was really little, but I've always wanted to go back. But yeah, I just hear crazy things out of Florida, and there are a lot of very weird true crime cases coming out of Florida. Alligators, like you guys said. So
yeah,
gotta be careful out there.
Yeah.
So where serial killers and alligators.
So whereabouts in the States are you used to from?
California, I'm in Northern California.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
I'm from California. I live in South Dakota right now, but I'm a California girl.
Oh, nice.
Another shithole.
Yes.
So.
Which one?
No, I was talking about California. Sorry, Amy.
What I hear.
Yes, it definitely has its moments, but you can't beat the oceans and the mountains out here. So I love California, just not the cost of living.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, but the prices,
another conversation.
The prices are insane, and just all the crime and all the yeah.
No, I hear
it
you
used
on
to be a
that
nice
one.
place.
Yeah.
Fucking mountain lions and alligators. You can't escape it. You
every
go to America,
state you live in the U.S., there's something that'll eat you.
Ain't eating you, it's shooting you.
You guys don't have any bears? You don't have any alligators? I mean, what large animals do you have?
We used to have wolves and bears long time ago, and then we nipped them all out.
Yeah,
we said we ain't having these cunts.
Guys, thanks.
Squirrels and hedgehogs is one thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
But apparently they are on about introducing. They are on about reintroducing the fox. The fox, fucking wolves back into into the country.
Stupidest idea ever.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. There's no ecosystem for them now.
That's true. Where would they live?
They eat babies.
Yeah.
They just bust in through the door and oh, mind if I eat this? Foxes weren't doing that. Little hedgehog didn't do that. Squirrel certainly didn't. And now you got this fucking, they want to bring wolves back in. Maybe bears next. Paddington will be shitting himself.
Why do they want to bring them?
Yeah.
Just because?
I don't know. I think people...
Because of hippies. Oh. These stupid kids today who are like, bears are our friends. No, they're not.
You are not a fan of nature, I'm gathering.
I like nature at a distance.
Oh yeah,
just things that don't hurt or harm him.
Yeah. If it looks at me and goes, I could eat you, I don't want to know. It can fuck right off. That's why I won't go in the ocean. I can't swim, and I certainly won't go to the sky. Can't fly, can't swim, sky and ocean, out of bounds. Not my business, not my place. And when people are out there, they go, oh, I was out in the ocean, and out of nowhere, a shark got me. Well, out of nowhere.
Right, it was your fault.
Okay. So that brings up a question we just had on our Halloween episode. Would you rather spend 1 hour in a coffin, or, and now based on what you just said, I think I know your answer, or 15 minutes swimming in a dark shark-infested ocean?
Coffin.
Yeah, dark coffin.
Yeah.
Ain't no shark gonna bite my head off in a coffin.
Yeah, we all picked the coffin too. So okay, yeah, that just kind of reminded me.
Shark attacks are not a sort of risk you take when you're an undertaker.
That's true. It's pretty.
No one worries about burying people. Like oh, you got to dig the grave. Careful you don't fall and look out for sharks. Never happens. Give me the coffin.
What? Yeah, no, I take the 1 hour on the coffin any day. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, no, the same. Coffin. I can't stand the ocean. My greatest fear is like being in a plane and crashing like into the sea and surviving. Like, no, I'd rather.
I'm with you on that.
Like,
and have you seen how they build these coffins? Like these days, these coffins now, they're like luxury beds, mate. There was this TV show on the other day, and these ladies on there, man, they were asking how much these certain coffins cost, and some of them they were like, oh yeah, this one here is like £42,000. It's like, what about the coffin? They're going to bury the bastard.
They're like, oh, right. They do look nice inside.
They got the padding on the inside, the satin.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, one of them had a Blu-ray player in it. Fucking
they're probably more comfortable than my bed, I'm thinking. So yeah.
That's why people fake their deaths, I reckon. Get a good night's sleep.
So nobody here has the claustrophobia. No one's afraid of being trapped in a little.
I've got agoraphobia, mate. Claustrophobia is my best mate.
Yeah, I'm claustrophobic, but I would still take the coffin over a dark ocean. Yeah,
same.
I guess we're all on the same page.
Every now and then, something bumps against your foot, and you can't see what it is while you're out there in the abyss. Just waiting for your time.
But if you're in a coffin, then you have to worry about all the ghosts. So, I mean...
Oh, they'll be all right. There won't be any room for them. They're quite snug, those coffins.
Good point. Fair point.
Well, Aaron doesn't have to worry about them because he doesn't believe in Chris. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see at the end.
We'll see. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be a believer after this. Right. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know. So, Annabelle.
It might take another story to convince me because this whole hasn't got me yet.
We've kind of solved the case on Annabelle. Well, I say solved. What's the next one?
So,
what's the next story?
Our next story is the Perron family in 1971, which is the haunting that the first Conjuring movie is based on. So the Perron family consisted of the two parents, Carolyn Perron and Roger, and then their 5 daughters. And they moved into this old, huge farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. And the house actually has a really interesting history. It was built, I think, in the late 1600s, early 1700s. So it is a very old house. The original property was like I want to say like 1,000 acres or something. And it was, it was given to this one family and then kind of divvied up. And eventually, I believe the people who built the house was the Arnold family. So the Arnold family built the house in the early 1700s, and then they had like 8 generations of this one family living in the house before it eventually was bought and sold, to whoever else owned it before the Perrons. So the Perrons moved in. It's a big, gorgeous house. They've got a big family. They need all these extra bedrooms. And they said that right away they started having weird occurrences. So the oldest daughter, Andrea, has written a book. Actually, I think she's written a few books about it. And she's done a whole bunch of interviews. They've done documentaries about it. And she says that on the day that they moved in, she was bringing a box into the kitchen, and she saw the man who was selling them the house, and he was standing next to another man. And so she said good morning to both of them and went into the kitchen. And she said, "Mom, who's that man standing with, so-and-so?" And the mom said, "No one, there's no one else here." Then another daughter walks in and says, "Mom, who's that man standing next to so-and-so? He's dressed funny." And then a third daughter comes in and says, "Who's that man?" So they all saw this man, and they saw him as clear as day, but I guess there was no one else in the house. It was just them and the old man who was selling them the house. Then, let me see here. So then other creepy things started happening, and at first it was just little things like tapping noises or things disappearing, things moving in the house. But eventually, Andrea says that the girls' beds would shake at night, and they would get really scared. And the younger daughters would see like spirits standing around their bed at night, and they would come running into the older sister's room, or they would go running to the parents' room and say, that they were seeing people. And one night, Andrea says that her younger sister, Cindy, came running into her room, and she said that she had been woken up because there were people standing around her bed, and they just kept like repeating this sentence over and over. And she was saying, "It's so loud, like I can still hear it. How can you not hear it?" And Andrea asked her, "Well, what are they saying?" And she said, "They're saying there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the walls. There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the walls," and just kept repeating this phrase. So that's pretty creepy. But I guess the target of most of the negative stuff was the mom, Carolyn. She would get scratches. She said that she felt like there were 2 entities in the house specifically, and one was good, and it would like give her hugs, and she would like smell perfume. And then this other entity would just mess with her, like it did not like her. So I think one of the worst occurrences was when Carolyn was, I think, alone in the house. She was waiting for her daughters to come home from school, and she heard like a banging noise upstairs. So she goes upstairs, and I think she went in the closet, and then the closet door slams behind her, and she gets locked in the closet. And she was in there for a few hours until one of her daughters found her, and she was like in the closet, passed out, like tangled up in all these hangers. And she said that she had just felt like she was being attacked. So eventually, when things got bad enough, they called the Warrens. Carolyn Perron had heard about the Warrens, and she called them to come to the house. And the Warrens basically told her that there was an evil witch spirit living in the house named Bathsheba. And they had like this whole story about Bathsheba Sherman, and that she was a witch, and she had lived in the house in like the early 1800s, and that she was like a devil worshiper and sacrificed babies and all this stuff. Which there is some truth to some of that, because there was a lady named Bathsheba Sherman, and she did live near the property. She didn't live on the property. But Bathsheba Sherman, there are a lot of like legends around her, but almost none of it is actually like proven. So there are stories that she was a Satan worshiper and like a witch, and that she murdered a baby, but like none of it is substantiated. But the legend goes that basically she was watching the neighbor's baby and the baby died. And then when they examined the baby's body later, they found like a little puncture wound in the back of its skull. So the town kind of thought that she had used a needle to murder this baby, and they all accused her, and she just became like a social outcast after that. And actually, according to the story, she commits suicide by hanging herself from a tree. But like all of this is negated by records and like facts. So, it's just stories. Like, who knows?
Was that Ed and Lorraine told them about Bathsheba, or they had done their own research and they found that out?
Lorraine and Ed told them about this. Basically, see, I don't want to get into this yet because I want to wait till the end, but I think basically they said that when Lorraine Warren came into the house, she just already had this story about Bathsheba and you're being haunted by a witch. But I think that they had done some research prior to coming to the Perrons' home, and then that's where they got the story. But yeah, the Perrons got the story from the Warrens. So, and Carolyn Perron would go on to do her own research later, which would like kind of contradict what the Warrens had told them. But basically, so Ed and Lorraine Warren came to the house. They did their investigation, and the Perron family said that actually when the Warrens showed up, things started to get worse. And then one night they did a seance. So during this seance, I think it was Ed, Lorraine, the two parents, and some of the daughters were there. They witnessed it. And they all said that Carolyn just started freaking out during the seance. She started like contorting her body, and her eyes were rolling in the back of her head, and she was just screaming like she was in pain. And then eventually they all actually witnessed her getting thrown out of her chair, and they said that they could like hear her head smacking on the floor. And what's his name? Roger went to go help his wife, and Ed Warren stopped him and said, don't touch her, leave her alone. And Roger actually wound up punching Ed in the face. And then after that, the Warrens were asked to leave, so they left.
Yeah.
So the Conjuring movie makes it seem really different. Like, The Conjuring kind of shows the Warrens coming in and like solving the case and helping the family, and everything's great. That's not really what happened at all. I mean, the Warrens were asked to leave, and they didn't really do anything. So it's a lot different.
I was going to say, I mean, that kind of seems to be like just how it normally was. They would go in and they didn't actually do anything. They would just say, "Oh yeah, your place is haunted."
No, that's
surprise.
Yeah,
that's so true.
I'm like, okay, like I don't know that. I'm in looking at all of these cases. I'm not actually sure that they resolved anything in any of them other than go and declare it as haunted, right?
See, that's kind of how I felt too. It's like they would come in to whatever situation and Ed would go, "You have a demon. Like, this is a demon." And then they'd write a book, Okay, bye.
Yeah, we're gonna make $100,000 on our book.
So I kind of agree. I'm not sure what they actually did. But
yeah, I've heard about the after that seance, they sort of told Ed to
leave,
fucking do one sort of thing. And I believe, I don't know if it's for The Conjuring, but one of the hauntings that did end up becoming a, like one of the movies, apparently he said to the director or whatever it was, he said, "You've got the story, choose the bits that are good and make up the rest." I don't know if it was for The Conjuring or if it was for one of the other ones. And
one of the books, yeah.
Or possibly one of the books, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
and straight away, part of me is like, well, if you're going to do that, it's almost discrediting yourself.
There's multiple books actually that the Warrens were involved in, where the authors would come forward later and be like, Ed told me to make it up and make it scary, and or they would go to the Warrens and say, this family's story doesn't really make sense, or they're contradicting each other, and Ed would be like, well, just figure it out, make something up. So
well, he actually, there's one of the authors actually came out and said, when he told them, oh yeah, things aren't adding up, he said, well, all these people that come to us are crazy anyway.
That's it. Sorry, that's what I was getting. Yeah, sorry, not one of the directors. Yeah, one of the authors of the books. Yeah.
So I mean, if they're even admitting that
these people are just crazy,
it pertains to their own book, I mean, that does kind of discredit a lot of what you hear about what they've done.
But at the same time, I kind of get it, because if you're going to write a book and it's not, a horror book, and it's not scary, then
they're not going to buy it.
People aren't going to buy it. Yeah. They're not going to buy it. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, ultimately, the whole point of the book, even though you want to educate people, it's got to be entertaining as well. And the kind of people who are going to be picking up these haunting books, like you say, they're going to be people who are interested in horror. And if they're reading this book and there's just some bloke saying, oh, well, I walked into a house and we heard a tapping noise, and well, that was that. And then the next day we went in there wasn't a tapping noise.
Right, and then nothing happened for days.
But at the same time, it's like, well, but that says to me, well, then just take those so-called true experiences and use them to write your own fiction, and then just sell that.
Yeah, it's
that's
such a bummer to find out, what these authors said, because when I was younger, I read the Amityville Horror. And it was a good book. It scared the crap out of me. And I loved it. And I really believed it, too. I thought, like, oh, my God, all this stuff really happened to this family. This is crazy.
I'll be honest, the film scared the shit out of me.
It was a good movie. It was
one of the first films I actually, sort of had nightmares about.
Yeah. But what I find interesting, even if, first of all, I'm not sure how I feel about Ed and Lorraine Warren, but I do believe these families' accounts. So I don't think these families are just making things up. I think that maybe in some cases they are, but, I do believe what they say. But even if you don't believe in that, I think the history of a lot of these houses is really interesting. Like, we'll get into the Amityville house next, but that property had a really interesting history. This house, the Perron Family house, had a very interesting history, which didn't exactly line up with the Warrens' version of events. But I mean, the Arnold family, like I said, they had 8 generations that lived in this home before the parents moved in, and they had a lot of tragedies that happened on the property. There was one case of a boy drowning in the creek outside. There was like a farmhand who actually shot himself in their front yard. And then Mrs. Arnold, who I think lived in the house, not that long before the parents moved in, she committed suicide in the barn. She hung herself at the age of 80. So, and I think there were a few other deaths as well, but that I couldn't confirm. But so these properties do have a very interesting history, even if you don't believe all the ghost stuff,
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever think because there's been a couple of times before, I remember reading in these some of these certain accounts, because some of them with these ghost writers, for no pun intended, but these people who write about ghosts. Sorry, shall I say? But and this may not necessarily be the Warrens, but I know there have been cases where a lot of these people who write books about their psychic mediumship and investigating ghosts, they'll be like, look, if I get an advance for each book, that's say $100,000. If you say all this stuff happened in your house and you back it all up, there's $25,000 in it for you.
That's possible.
So it's one of those everybody wins sort of things that happens quite a bit. And another one as well that I've always wondered is, what if these houses where everything goes on, like those ones that you were saying about, what if there's like some sort of gas leak under their house and it's just slowly turning all the people who live there loopy because they can't pick up on it? Yeah, maybe it's just doing something like that, and then maybe like in years from now they'll look at, oh Jesus, no wonder everyone here goes crazy and kills himself and stuff like that. They're hallucinating because of all this natural gas, because it's like scentless and stuff. It's eking up through the house.
That's
could be
true.
anything,
or like lead paint on the walls or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, like mold growing in the house, like these different types of fungus and getting into the air ducts,
Yeah,
and
it's making people hallucinate.
Slowly but surely making them hallucinate, and then they're seeing shit, and then they end up just going a bit mental. Or could even be something really trivial, like the colour the walls are painted. Maybe it triggers some sort of depression thing in people's minds, very subconsciously, and over time it just takes over. Could be a load of things, and I think as far and wild as those ideas are, for me, they're much more likely than it being like people possessing them and whatnot.
So it's interesting that you bring all of those points up, because this next story is my favorite story, and it's crazy, and I had never heard of it before I started researching for this. So have any of you heard of the Lindley Street poltergeist?
That's the one case of theirs I have not heard of.
Was that the one in the
UK? No, that's Enfield. This one was in the US.
Enfield.
Yes. Yeah,
no, I've not heard of this one.
No, I don't know about
no
this
one has heard of this story, and it blows my mind because of all of the Warrens' cases that they were involved in. And maybe the reason they never, talked about it much is because they really weren't very, very involved in this case. But this case has the most evidence. It has the most witnesses. It's a crazy, crazy story. So in 1974, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, the Gooden family were attacked by some invisible force in their home. So it started when Jerry and Laura Gooden, who lived in the house with their little daughter, Marcia, who was 10 at the time, Jerry and Laura were returning home from a grocery shopping trip, and they said that they were putting things away, and that suddenly the kitchen table started shaking, and then it actually toppled over with all their groceries on it. And they said that other things in the kitchen were moving. They said knives were being pulled out of the knife holder thing, and like things were being thrown around. So this was the first event, and strangely, they said that they kind of just rationalized it, and they didn't know what had just happened, but they kind of just ignored it and carried on with their day. So they put everything away, put things back where they were, and just forgot about it. But over time, other strange things continued to happen in the house. They would hear noises, they'd hear knocking. Eventually it got to the point where they were being woken up almost every night, they said, by like hearing a crashing noise or glass breaking. And they would go out in their living room and they would find, furniture toppled over and like things broken. And I don't know what day it was, but eventually things got so bad that they actually called the police. Or no, they called 911, and first the fire department showed up. So let me get the names. There were 2 fire chiefs who showed up, and they actually witnessed things moving in the house by themselves. Let me see. It was Fire Chief Messina and Assistant Fire Chief Paul McKenna. They came to the house, and they saw things moving, and they actually were quoted in the news saying, "The fire department is not equipped to deal with devils." So after that, the police arrived on the scene, and there were 3 officers, Officer Tomek, Officer Leonzi, and Officer Holsworth. And all 3 of them, same thing. They would later tell reporters that they saw furniture moving in the house. They saw the TV moving by itself. They saw like recliners in the living room opening and closing by themselves. So after this, it kind of became like a spectacle. Like neighbors started showing up, and other people started showing up to like see what was going on. And somebody called the Warrens. I think like a neighbor who actually knew them called them over and told them what was happening. So they showed up. But like I said, they weren't really involved. They were more just like spectators to this case. But there were at least like 30 credible witnesses who saw weird things happening in this house. They saw furniture moving. They saw the refrigerator slide across the floor by itself, like a big, 400-pound refrigerator. They saw the TV move. They saw the chairs opening and closing. And a few of them actually saw the little daughter being thrown against a wall. So they called I don't remember what his title was. He was some sort of like an engineer, like a city engineer. And they asked him to, go through the house and see if there's like an electrical problem or a gas leak or something like that. And he was one of the witnesses who saw Marcia being thrown against a wall. And he also saw the refrigerator sliding across the kitchen floor by itself. So there were tons of witnesses who saw all this weird stuff happening. And this engineer confirmed that there was no leaks. There was nothing electrical wrong with the house. So what do you guys think? I mean, what's the explanation?
I mean, that one
seismic activity happens all the time.
I think it was an earthquake.
So
but just in the house, though.
Yeah, just in there. It's a very specific spot.
Yeah, that's why it's called
Localized.
isolated. It happens all the time. It's where a lot of these bridges start falling down. It's where you get potholes a lot of the time as well. Isolated seismic activity. It's a real a lot of these sinkholes that you find.
I mean, it could
be.
That
happen.
But
these sort of things can happen.
Yeah, anything's possible, that's for sure. But I mean, if people are being thrown against walls, though, and not everyone's being thrown against the wall,
right?
I mean,
and you would think that all these neighbors and all these adults who were there would feel if something like that was happening, like an earthquake or whatever. You'd think that someone would have been able to tell. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I definitely give those are a lot more believable when you have multiple people involved that are not directly related, like they're not with the family, you have like actual city officials.
Yeah.
So to me, I've never heard of that one, but to me that one's a lot more believable. Yeah.
This case,
I wouldn't be surprised about that.
This case was crazy.
Yeah, but a lot of people will say stuff to get their names in the papers. Yeah, I saw it too. Yeah, me too. Oh, journalist over here, me, I saw it. I saw that. There's a lot of that too. And also, we know far too well on this show about how accurate eyewitness accounts are. I mean, they can say, oh, the girl was thrown across the room. Maybe she fell over. But in the heat of the moment and all the excitement, it was like, oh, man, she was like, thrown. But was she? All these sort of things.
See, I agree with all of that. And I also don't put a lot of faith into eyewitness accounts because, things can be misremembered or, depending on where you're standing, you might see something differently from someone else who was there. So I totally agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, it's like there were so many people who all came forward and said that they saw what they saw. And Amy, did you want to say something?
Oh, no.
Okay. No. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, so this became such a big spectacle in the town and people were freaking out. It was it was front page news for weeks. And eventually the mayor actually came forward and he was frustrated with the story. And he basically said it was all, bogus. And he said that it was a hoax and that the 10-year-old, little girl was the one perpetrating it. And he put a stop to the story. He said it was all fake. It was a hoax. But his police officers and the fire department and the reporters and all the people who were there, a few of them got angry at this and they came forward and they disputed that. And they said, how could we have possibly not seen this little girl pushing this 400-pound refrigerator? How could she have done these things and none of us see her doing it? So they stuck to their guns. I mean, they saw what they said. They saw what they saw, and they were sticking to their story. So
I'm curious why the mayor blamed the 10-year-old girl and not the family, like not her parents. Like, what made him say she was the one perpetrating all of this? That's crazy to me.
Weakest chain in the link.
True. Why would you blame it on the 10-year-old?
Yeah.
Well, they were having an affair and it ended badly.
Yeah. No, so I found that to be an interesting part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, like the way how the table flipped over with all their shopping, and they were like, "Oh, we'll just ignore that."
Yeah,
just try and carry on.
Looks like
I would have been out that fucking house straight away.
Yeah,
that's what I liked about the first Insidious movie. They saw they had a ghost, and they were like, "We're fucking moving."
Right, that was like the first scene.
and because it followed them, they were like, "Well, that didn't work."
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the good bit from that film.
Yeah, and there's no really resolution to this story. Well, I guess there kind of is. So the Warrens wound up calling a priest, and the priest came to the home and he blessed the home. And then I guess after that, you didn't really hear anything from the family, so problem solved, I guess.
done our bit.
Job well done.
Done our job. Let's go.
Warrens actually accomplished something. But
money, please.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such an interesting.
I don't know how you could explain the stuff moving. If it did move as exaggerate, as what they said. But there's always a chance that they've exaggerated a little bit, like what Aaron's saying, in the heat of the moment. I don't know what to make of this one, to be totally honest with you.
Another thing to look into would be what's going on around at that time as well. Is there a local election in the place? Is there a new facility being opened, a new destination for people,
or something that they're trying to distract from that they don't want you looking at?
Yeah, and it's all happening in this place. It's like, oh, we can go there, and that's more tourism
true.
And all this kind of thing, and it could be one mayor saying, oh yeah, the mayor went there and it was ghosts and stuff, and he was like, no, I didn't do that. That was a hoax. He's like, no, he did. He's crazy. Don't vote for him. Vote for me. And
yeah,
I think there's a load of things to sort of.
That's
I'm not
point.
saying it didn't happen that way. I think there's a lot more to rule out before we can jump in and say, well, definitely demons did it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a believer. Like I said, I had a few things happen, but what I will say, and I can, as far as the skeptics, and this is a valid point, a lot of these stories are from the 1970s and 80s before we had all of this technology. These are like extreme cases of people being thrown against the wall and, all these major things happening. But with today's technology and filming capacity, you don't really see
any evidence,
any of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'd say a lot of the evidence that we get is like orbs or something small moving, whereas in these stories, people are levitating off the ground, of 400-pound refrigerators being moved across. But like in today's world,
it's always fantastical.
That's true.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I am definitely a believer, but you do have to also think of the other side that, there's we don't have that much proof nowadays for as much technology that we have compared to, what these people are saying happened to them. So
Chris and I say the same thing about aliens as well. Like back in the 70s and 80s, it turned people who would go like if you were lucky enough to have a camcorder, you could go out and record something, and these people just happened to catch these UFOs, and now everyone's got a phone and a camera in their pocket, which is of much better quality, and no one's finding UFO footage. It's like you said, it's like today we go by orbs and small things, and back then when they couldn't fact check these things as quickly, it was simply, it was just like how you saw it in the movies.
You guys don't think that there's recent UFO footage? I feel like there's tons.
Nothing decent.
Yeah, that I've seen things that I'm like, oh yeah, no, that I totally think that's a UFO. Yeah, I will say that. I think I was more talking about, ghostly occurrences, but UFO, yeah, that's a whole different story. I totally believe a lot of these the footage that I've seen of those.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Amy. I mean,
yeah.
like, I definitely think that the stories are exaggerated because, like you said, I mean, with our phones and our cameras and everything, you would think that someone would be able to capture someone being thrown against a wall if that was something that really happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I think these families exaggerate.
All the footage I see now, though, of these UFOs, though, they don't seem to be from your everyday people. It always seems to be from some military thing, or the government's giving it to us. So straight away, as soon as the government gets involved, I'm like, oh, they're up to something here. What's this? Why are they trying to get in on the UFO thing? What are they selling? You know?
I don't know. I feel like I've seen footage from regular people, and it's just I think a lot of those don't get credit because people think, oh, they're faking it because it is coming from a unlegitimate source. It's just a person with their phone. They could be doing anything. But I've for sure seen some crazy footage that didn't necessarily come from military or government that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to look more
that
into
one
it and try and find some. Yeah, I'll give it a go at some point. Well, maybe me and Chris will give this research thing a go. People keep talking.
Yeah.
Hey, you should try it.
It's fun. Go for it.
Sounds dangerous.
Sounds dangerous. Well, that was an interesting story. I definitely think that all these witnesses can't be making up the same story. But then again, I guess it does depend. Maybe they are. None of them became famous. None of them got paid after this. So I don't see a reason why they would.
Yeah, there's no book on that one or anything like that.
No one even has heard of this case, and I don't understand why. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
be interesting to see if any of the people involved have spoke about it.
Yeah, since.
Recently, if they're still alive or whatever.
Or if they're even real.
Well, we're going to have to do some research and reach out to some of these people and see if they want to come on the podcast and,
there you go.
Get their overdue publicity on that, I guess.
Where's their movie?
Yeah. Where's the Lindley Street movie?
Got everything. Refrigerators.
I mean, this story, though, it does sound awfully similar to the Enfield haunting.
Okay, we're going to get to that one later, but I just have to ask you guys, because you're actually like from London and, you might be more familiar with this story than us, but what do you guys think of it? I mean,
we're not from London.
Well, I mean, you're from England, and it's a famous English
close
case.
Enough. You're close enough.
We're close enough.
Same country.
Yeah.
I saw a funny TikTok video yesterday where this guy was saying, if an American asks you if you live close to London and you live like 2 hours away, for us, that's close. Like, so it's all relative.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it is relative.
England is tiny.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you could probably drive across the whole country in what, like 6 hours?
If you're going from left to
traffic, left to right, maybe.
Depending on
if you're going from left to right, you probably could. Yeah, but
well, I didn't.
But we're tiny. Like from south to north, it's 900 miles. We're not even 1,000 miles. Like,
I didn't mean to imply you guys are from London. I just meant like it's a famous English haunting, right? So you might have. I don't know. Do people talk about it out there, or like, is it famous where you're from?
I've heard about it. I think I'd say most people. Well,
it's one of those ones that gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it? Like, there's always been like every.
I think it is known as Britain's most famous.
There'll be a documentary on telly.
And I think it is known as Britain's most famous ghost story or haunting.
So what do you guys think? What have you heard? Like, was it fake? Was it real?
Yeah. Well, I know one of the daughters did admit to some of it being a hoax. She said not all of it, but I know it did get, they did admit they did make up something like the whole levitating
didn't she say
thing.
like in the beginning it was
real, and then they kind of started adding.
Yeah, didn't she say like in the beginning it was
There's
like Ed and Lorraine turned up and was like, oh, if you add this and you add that,
it's a demon.
Oh, I think what's interesting are those pictures of people say, oh, she's levitating off the bed. I'm like, that looks like she's jumping off the bed. Like, where do you get levitating? I don't get that. But I have seen some of the video footage, and I will say to me, it did kind of look like a little bit of acting. So while, I think it's possible that there were things going on because, again, I think there were official witnesses, right? I think the cops showed up and everything.
Yeah, so there's police, and they saw some things move and stuff, which is what I was saying. Sounds very similar to that previous ghost story.
Yeah, see, that convinces me. The police saying that they saw like a chair moving or whatever. The neighbors also said that they saw things moving. And then...
Yeah, there was quite a lot of family members that said they see things moving. I say, obviously, as to, I know one of the daughters said some of it was hoaxed, whether it was just the levitating stuff or maybe they were all in on it and she's only saying she done something. Maybe it was like, a practical joke that's got out of hand and now it's like, oh, fuck, the police are involved. Maybe I should just...
Yeah. I mean, if they're admitting to certain parts of acting on that, it's hard to believe. It's hard to know what to believe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I don't know. It's almost a bit like the boy who cried wolf sort of thing, isn't it? You don't know whether to believe it or not.
I think it's like most of the Warrens cases where like it may have started out as a genuine thing because there had to be something going on first of all, for the mom to call the cops and then for the cops to come over to the house and say they saw what they saw. I think something was going on in the beginning, but then, I think as they got more fame and notoriety to the story and it became like a news story and people came to the house to observe and check it out, and I think that kind of just fed into it more and the girls were like, okay, well, let's put on a show then. And
maybe as the story was dying down, they're like, I'll make out your legs.
You can
jump
almost
off the bed. I'll take a picture.
I mean, this was a single mother. Maybe she was struggling. And like you said, you have press showing up and people want to take pictures and do interviews. And then maybe, you're like, okay, I'll do this for a couple $100. I'll come on your show and talk about it. You can see like maybe it's possible there could definitely be some encouragement and definitely a lot of embellishment and exaggeration going on, for fortune and glory purposes.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point.
Police have always been very underpaid.
You said underpaid?
Who's been underpaid?
The police in those sort of days back then, through the 70s, tragically underpaid. In the 80s, I bet there was a lot of things that people would be like with that last one, like wherever it was, maybe they were like, oh, if we make out there's this huge thing going on and then we call Ed and Warren down, they'll look into it and then it'll make all our town better. And maybe them two were just like, oh, this place is a shithole, we don't want to do anything here. And then they were like, oh, come on. And they're like, nah, forget it.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, like the girls, like apparently the family called them because it was like legitimate or something. Like at first, but then when Morris they were like, you've got to amp this up a bit more if you want like national press, and that's when they started like getting a bit fruity apparently. But I don't know, it all seems a bit sure.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, especially, like I said, they're admitting to faking certain parts. So that one.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's like, if you're going to make up one part of it, why can't we assume you made up the rest of it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But...
Or do they sort of sit there thinking, oh, if we admit to making some of it up, they'll really believe the true stuff? And it's like, nah, that's not really how it works.
Right.
That's how liars think. But there are things that convince me a little bit, like all of the witnesses, the cops especially. And then there were 2 guys that actually came from like the Institute of Psychic Research or whatever, and they observed the girls. And they even said what you just said. I mean, they said that they believed that the girls were faking some of it, but they also had experiences that they believed were genuine, like things being thrown at them. They said that they saw the girls levitating. I don't know about that one. And then they said that they would hear disembodied voices and that they could ask this ghost questions and they would hear knocking responses and things like that. But that's all easily faked too. So it's like, who knows? And one of those guys actually went on to write a book, now that I'm thinking about it. So, you know, more fodder for his book. He could have been, you know, embellishing, who knows? So.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one I'm not sure about.
Yeah, that's something we find quite a lot, isn't it? We can't pin it on all of them, but like a lot of the times people will come on our show and be like, well, why would this person lie? And we're like, what, that person who's got 3 books and a movie based on them? Oh, I wonder why.
Right, what's the motive?
But obviously that's not the case with all of them. But we get that a lot.
Yeah, well, like those cops, I don't see what they could have had to gain.
But either way, I think, even if it isn't.
Yeah, because if anything, with the cops,
Money.
you know.
But of all the ways for cops to make money,
Yeah, but
Money.
why would they be making
yeah,
up
they're not going to
ghost
make
stories?
much money off just the one account of like, oh, I saw the fridge move. Like, you know,
Yeah, I don't think they made any money off
They're not going to
that.
make money off of that.
But who knows? Maybe they wanted to write a book and it just never came to
They
be.
wanted to.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
never know. Okay, so the next story is
It's a
the Amityville story.
crazy one.
And you guys, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to give up on my notes because they're really just messing me up. So
No, that's all right.
the Amityville is a crazy story. And I told Aaron about this, but there's a documentary I watched called Shattered Hopes, the true story of the Amityville murders. And it is an amazing documentary. I mean, it blew my mind. The information that it had was just stuff that I had never heard before and stuff that I think a lot of people have never heard before. But basically, the story starts with the DeFeo family. It was Ronald DeFeo Sr., his wife Louise, and then they had 4 children. I think they had 5 children. So it was Ronnie Jr., who goes by Butch, so I'll be referring to him as Butch. Dawn, who was the second oldest, she was 18 at the time. Allison, who was 13. Mark, who was, I think, 11. And then John was the youngest. He was 8. And on November 14th of 1974, I want to say, Butch DeFeo went running into a bar and he was screaming his head off saying that his family was dead and he asked for help. So a couple of the guys from the bar followed him home and they discovered this horrible scene. All 6 members of his family had been shot and killed in their beds. So they called the cops. The cops came to the scene and there were some really interesting things about the crime scene. For one, all 6 members of the family were found laying on their stomachs in bed. They had all been shot with a shotgun, and yet it didn't seem like any of them had heard anything or woken up or tried to get up out of bed. So it's kind of interesting that one person with a shotgun could move from room to room and shoot 6 people, and some of them were shot twice, and nobody heard anything. And that includes the neighbors. So the neighbors didn't hear anything that night. But what's interesting about that is that some of them would come forward later to the police and say that they heard the dog barking at like 3 a.m. So they heard the dog barking, but nobody heard any gunshots. So very weird. Butch DeFeo became a suspect pretty much right away. And I think at first he tried to say that it was an intruder, but he gave up on that excuse pretty quickly and he admitted to doing it. But at trial, he said that he had been possessed and that he felt like he wasn't in control of his body. He felt like something had taken control of him and was doing the actions. And he also said that he was hearing voices telling him that his family was plotting to kill him. And so he had kind of acted in self-defense. So he had like multiple conflicting stories, but the takeaway is that he was possessed by demons. The house was haunted. He heard voices telling him to do it and telling him that his family was plotting. You know, so whatever you think of that. So he was...
I'm guessing
That
there was
one.
no evidence to say that he moved the bodies.
No.
I guess
Nope.
there was no like blood trails or anything like that.
Nothing like that.
No sleeping pills, people drugged out of their
Yeah.
minds where they didn't wake up.
They tested. They
Yeah,
tested for
I mean,
all of
that
that. The bodies had not been moved, and they actually did test them for drugs, and none of them had anything in their system.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
very
So,
weird.
drugs.
Yeah, I mean, that is odd, but I definitely attribute this to obvious mental illness. You know, I don't think there was any possession going on as far as this guy's
Right.
concerned. And I think
Or a good lawyer.
Yeah, I think even later on, I think he said, you know, him talking about the haunting that, you know, the Lutz family that moved in afterwards. I think he said that was all made up. Like,
Yeah.
so just him saying that kind of negates his claim that there was possession going on. I mean, to me personally,
Well,
yeah, I don't think he was possessed. I think he was just mentally
that's an
ill.
interesting point because
Yeah.
I've thought about that too. Like, I agree. I don't think that there was anything supernatural going on before the murders, but after the murders, I mean, 6 people had died violently in their sleep in that house. So there could have been something afterwards in the house. You know, who knows?
There definitely could have been, but just all the things that I've heard after the fact, I don't believe that story with the Lutzes. You know, there's all these things that have been debunked based on what was in the book, you know? And I think even the Butch's lawyer, I think, didn't he actually work on the book, The Amityville Haunting, with the Warrens and the Lutzes and the author? And he came out and said, the story's fake. We were all drunk and we came up with the story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that, there you go, you know?
Amy.
But I mean, just other
you
things.
should watch this documentary because everything you just said is in the documentary, but it gets so much crazier than that. Like it's insane.
Okay. Yeah.
What's this documentary called again?
It's called
Tiger King.
Yeah.
What would you say?
That was a tiger.
No,
Oh, no.
No, that was wicked.
crazy. That's a crazy documentary.
it's called Shattered Hopes. The true story of the Amityville murders.
Gonna watch that
And it's on
tonight, I
YouTube for
reckon.
free.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to watch it
It's
too.
so good, you guys. You
Shattered
should.
Hopes,
It's like a
yeah?
7-hour documentary.
Is it on YouTube, you
Huh?
say? Is it a YouTube
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
documentary,
Yeah.
did you say? Yeah. Shattered Hopes. Right.
Okay.
It's
I'll
7
watch that
hours
tonight,
long.
and then I'll scare myself shitless.
No,
and then-
well, maybe, but yeah, it's 7 hours long, but it's
honestly, the film generally did fucking give me nightmares when I first watched it.
Yeah.
The shit. It's the only
Yeah.
film I've actually been fucking, you know, had real bad time with, like genuine nightmares. Fucking yeah,
Mm.
yeah. That
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds'
it-
abs really scare you, don't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oof. Waking up in a cold sweat.
Wait, have
How is
you
it possible?
seen the remakes? Have you been tempted?
Yeah,
I've seen the
I
remake.
saw-
Yeah,
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
I saw it at the cinema. I thought it was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, Scary Movie 2 will always win, but yeah, they're good movies.
I've never seen Scary Movie 2, but I've heard
must.
good things about the first one.
Yeah. Oh, the first one's fantastic, and the second one's great. They cover the Amityville horror in that with James Woods, and it's
They do?
fantastic.
in the second one. They do Amityville.
Oh yes,
I don't remember that.
yeah, right at the beginning.
Oh,
Oh
those
yes,
movies are so good.
you'll have to rewatch it. You'll see soon enough.
Now I have to.
The flies on his face.
Okay, well.
Yeah, no, this one in the documentary, did they go over the debunked things like, in the book, the doors and windows were torn off the hinges, but then later on they investigated and they actually weren't. There was no damage to any of the hardware or anything like that. Subsequent house owners, they said not one single thing has ever happened to them in that house. They don't believe it. I think the Lutzes in the book, they said they called the police to report what was happening to them. But when you go back in the records, it showed that they never made one single phone call to the police.
Yeah, and then the priest that came to the house supposedly and got screamed at, and then he got in a car accident. The priest for the family came out later and said they never called him. He never went to the house. So, yeah, tons of things like that.
I mean, there's just like too much going on there to where I really don't believe that story at all. I think, but I am curious though, because the family did actually leave after 28 days. So you have to think, did they go into that with the purpose knowing that, hey, we're gonna, we know that this happened a year ago with the murder, so we're going to come up with this huge fantastical story and profit off of that. I mean, that's a pretty
dedicated.
Pretty dedicated plan to buy a house, move out 28 days later, knowing that you're going to make these claims of hauntings. So, I mean, there is that to consider, but
worked though,
right?
Yeah, no, you're right. It did work. So, I mean, maybe that was like a brilliant plan. So, I don't know. I think I've just seen too many things about how.
I think that's
what's
brilliant.
that?
More power to them. If they really came up with that, it was like, let's pretend that we're getting haunted and move out and make a killing out of this, and they pulled it off. I think that's a story worthy of its own movie.
And I believe they got the house real cheap price.
Yeah, that's
so they're
true.
already like.
So it's like maybe if they had money, they could. Oh yeah, let's just get this house and do. I mean, you never know. It's very possible that they knew what they were doing.
And the seven is the ghost ragers. I mean, most of these stories you've told us tonight are all from 1974. There was definitely a ghost trend or a kick at the time. You know, that people were like, it was the big thing. So everyone was like, let's jump on the ghost thing. The ghost thing is popular
like, hey, they're
right
making
now.
money. We could be.
So the buzz
that.
was already in the air.
That's true.
Yeah. No, that's
true because you don't really hear that kind of thing happening anymore. Like, when was the last time you heard of someone who had a haunted house and it became like a big story? But then again, maybe because
it's never a big story,
right? But
we're exposed and there's just
we're desensitized and it's just not a big deal anymore. So that could be it. So and then one other thing just on that story is that I read that George Lutz called out, before he called the Warrens, he called out another prominent paranormal investigator. And this guy told him that if he even suspected that any part of the story was a hoax, he said he was going to expose them. And so I guess they fired him. And that's when they called the Warrens in. And
I know a couple who won't say a thing.
You call these guys.
These guys will play ball.
I haven't heard that.
So, but he actually went on. He went on to write a book called The Amityville Conspiracy, based on his experiences with it. So that's just like another nail in the coffin against that whole story. So that one I do not believe.
Well, even if you think it's a hoax,
great film though,
there are still interesting things about the case, like why did Butch kill his whole family? How did nobody hear anything?
I'm more interested in the actual murder than the
Lutzes.
The alleged haunting afterwards. That definitely fascinates me. Like, if he did kill all of them without them waking up, I mean, fucking hell, he must have had a real, I don't know, run around the house, fucking bang, bang.
How did that happen?
But you'd think someone would wait. Shotguns are fucking loud. Like, I have fired one. Like my dad's mate, he's got a farm, and I fired a shotgun there years ago, and they're fucking loud. And I know, you know, modern days you can actually get like silencers for shotguns, but we're talking about, you know, this day, not fucking
70s.
But even those silencers,
yeah, they don't do shit
today,
really. Yeah.
They literally all they do really is just cut off where the sound's coming from. People just can't tell where it's sort of like. But I wonder if the barking that the lady could hear next door was actually the gun going off in that big house with those big rooms, and maybe she thought it was the dog barking, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was actually him blasting.
Maybe a shotgun blast inside a house.
Maybe.
Echoing like that. Cause it's big,
echoes more like
big rooms.
Well,
maybe that was, maybe it wasn't the dog barking, maybe she was listening to them all getting fucking killed. And that's grim, innit?
I don't know. I guess it depends how old she was, because it's kind of hard for me to picture someone confusing a dog with a shotgun blast.
But
it's going through two walls. I don't know.
I mean, if it's in the middle of the house and you know you're next door, and depending how far away the houses are from each other. But the police,
well, they're detached. I know they're not semi-detached. They are
they're fully
from one another. So
there's a good space between them. Yeah, that's true.
I know they said they didn't find any drugs, but I'm wondering if there was, I don't know, maybe he was a clever fucker and he knew something that wouldn't show up.
He was reportedly a drug addict, so he would have known his drugs. I mean,
maybe
could have something.
He'll know.
That's what I mean. You know, maybe he knew a way around it, or I don't know.
And also, drug tests back then wouldn't have picked up every drug. They would have just, if they would have known, like, oh, we can pick this up, we can pick that up. But there could have been toxins that could get through those tests, because if they've only got chemicals that can pick up things like morphine or what have you, then that's all that's going to show up. There's all kinds
of things that they might not test for. Like, I mean, if someone...
I wonder if they tested for alcohol.
I think they did, though. I think they ran their blood alcohol. They ran, their drug tests, whatever they had back then. But yeah, who knows? Because like if you were on something like Benadryl, I mean, they're not going to test for that, right? They're not going to specifically, they can't test for every single drug that's out there. So who knows?
Yeah.
Or he got a really, really lucky shot in, and it just bounced around everywhere and got all of them.
Magic bullet.
6 birds, one stone.
And he had to make up the ghost.
Wouldn't do that again if I tried.
No one would believe him.
What happened? If I told you, you won't believe me. Then we'll say ghost did it. Trust me, that's the better story.
Yeah, that's an odd one. That is an odd one.
I reckon the dog did it.
The dog did it. That's always a good excuse.
The dog held the pillow over their heads while he shot down and it muffled it. And then he just went around the house, and then the dog was like, "Oh, I won't say anything." He was like, "Of course you won't, you're a dog." And that was the end of that.
Okay, well, what's interesting about that is that according to this documentary, Shattered Hopes, and I think Butch DeFeo even came out years later and he told this story. He said that he didn't commit the murders alone, and he actually blamed his sister Dawn. So he basically said that the two of them, so it's such a complex story, but this family was just super unhealthy. The dad was super abusive. Ronald DeFeo Sr. was very abusive. He had a temper. He beat his wife. She would have bruises all over her all the time. He abused his older children. So Butch DeFeo and Dawn DeFeo hated their dad. And according to him, Dawn actually approached him with the idea of murdering their family. And he said, well, we don't have to murder everyone. Let's just murder our parents. And so they plotted to murder the parents together. And according to Butch, he went upstairs and he murdered his mom and his dad. But then when he had gone back downstairs, his sister had actually murdered the rest of the family. And then according to him, he got so mad at her that he shot her and killed her. And what's interesting about that is that Dawn DeFeo actually did have gunshot residue on the front of her dress, even though she was found laying on her stomach with the blankets pulled over her. So how would she have gotten gunshot residue on her? So that's an interesting... I mean, it's hard to believe anything he says because he murdered his family and he made up all these crazy stories, but there's evidence to back that version up, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was a survivor.
Just him. She was dead. He killed her.
Yeah.
But he blamed her for murdering the.
Oh, so he got mad and killed her.
Yeah, but he blamed her for murdering the siblings. So he said he murdered the dad and the mom. She murdered the siblings, and then he shot her. But
then they didn't find another weapon though.
Well, but they did a couple years later. A handgun was found in the lake or the river, whatever, the water outside the house. And it was dated to be from around the time of the murders. So there's that.
Okay. Well, that kind of changes things, huh?
Depends in what if the wounds were all shotgun wounds.
That's the thing. I don't know if there's
the pellets would be inside the body. Would there be handgun pellets as well? Did they find any?
What if they went around stabbing all of them in their sleep in the back of the head, and then turned them over, and then went around with the shotgun to cover it up, so that the story seems more like, well, why didn't anybody hear it then? And you got Ed next door going, bloody dog's going mental, and he's having a party next door with a shotgun.
And you're saying that's why the family just stayed in bed and they didn't get up?
More and more elaborate.
He already stabbed them?
Yeah, just he'd already stabbed them in the back of the head and covered up the stab wound with a shotgun.
So
just to make it more and more crazy. I said, like, see, it can't have been me.
It had to be a ghost.
All right.
We'll never know, because that's the thing. I don't know if the cops, did the autopsies on the parents and we'll know. Decided.
Chris and Aaron are onto it.
Well, you guys just don't believe anything. So, I mean.
You guys are difficult.
Open your mind. Come on.
I know. We've been called worse.
And quite rightly.
At least you know what you are.
Yeah.
No, it's fun to hear other perspectives. It is.
But even if you take all the ghosts and stuff out of all of these stories, it's still really interesting because there's real people there who are involved, and it's like, even if it is all made up, these people actually sat down and look at the waves they made just by this little story they made together, and it's got this entire. It's basically created an entire culture.
Yeah, that's true. There's a huge following,
and even if
people love it.
What cultures, for the most part, aren't based on bullshit. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah,
most of it comes from that, and it's like, yeah, cool, yeah, wicked. And then we've got people out there who are ghost hunting, and I hope they're all having a great time. And I hope people do find ghost footage so I can sit there and go, look at that, they were fucking right the whole time. Look, good for them. But until that happens, I think you're all crazy.
Yeah, it's all just stories, people's accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun.
Yeah.
But great.
And look at them. I mean, these people are going to go down in history. I mean, it's like over 40 years later, and we're still talking about that house, still talking about the people. Yeah. So
making movies.
Yeah. There's a new movie about it every few years. Sequels. So they continue to make money off of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, isn't they got that little museum, which I'd love to go to. That'd be great. That's up there with like the Mothman Museum.
Oh, I want to go there. I want to see them. What's that place called where the Mothman is?
Yeah, or Squonkapalooza.
Where is it?
Point Pleasant.
Oh,
Virginia, right?
Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go there.
Yeah. West Virginia. Point
Pleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, just off the Ohio River.
So, what do you guys think of the Mothman? Real or fake?
Love it.
Fake, but we love it.
Absolutely love
it. It's a great tourist attraction, and we just love it because everybody there gets on with it, and they're just like, look at this, we've got Mothman stuff, and we're like, damn right.
All the restaurants are Mothman themed. Yeah.
It's totally right.
Fun as hell.
Totally right.
It's like when my brother and sister live. My sister and her husband, brother-in-law. They're moving down to here soon, but they're literally around the corner from this road called Hitchcock Lane or something, and that entire street is just loads of stuff of Albert Hitchcock. Just like there's statues of birds everywhere. There's little street names. Yeah, it's cool. It's like near it's not far from you either, Chris, is there? There's that whole area where all the roads are named after Lord of the Rings characters and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they've got like Gandalf's place and like Frodo's way and stuff
That's
like that.
pretty
Because
cool.
that's where old Tolkien was like around that sort of area. So that whole entire place is just like, I love stuff like that. All those sort of things.
Yeah.
So to go up there and see all that Mothman stuff and like that other place as well where they have the Hodag. Just go check all that. Even when you go to Scotland and you just go and like talk to these people and they've got their little Nessie stories and stuff like that. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And that's why I find this stuff so fun. It's not because we like to get into it and make fun of people for what they believe in. We don't give a fuck what anyone believes in. We're not right or wrong on anything, but we just, I don't know. I think a part of us as well, we're looking for that little something that makes someone believe. Because I'm kind of jealous of people who genuinely believe in Bigfoot and go out looking for him, thinking today is going to be the day. It's like, oh man, just have that sense of adventure.
Yeah.
And just, you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh, next time. But, you know, it's just, unfortunately, the boring part of my brain sits there and just goes, yeah, but come on. Yeah, always got to ruin it for me.
It's interesting too to kind of try to figure out where do these stories come from? What is going on that's making these people think that they're seeing this, or did it really happen? Or, you know, like what leads to it? You know,
like a lot of trauma and stuff, like when they're younger and they like their brain, because they can't make sense of it, like their brain's like, well, this way makes sense, and it's like, oh, okay, it was a monster that lived in the attic the whole time.
Maybe.
Yeah. And it turns out it was actually like the uncle who lived a little couple doors down who lived with the parents, and it was
something going on.
But that didn't make sense to their little brains, so it had to come up with something else, and because that's how they remember it. They're like, no, that's what happened, you know. And then,
but how do you explain grown adults?
Tragic as well.
How do you explain grown adults seeing crazy things? I mean, like the Mothman had a few different people come and say they saw it, and they were all grown adults. And sometimes it was more than one person at a time. I mean, there was like a car of 4 people who said they saw it. So, I mean, what's the reason for that?
Yeah.
Very rural, small town. People are bored, not got much to do.
Yeah, that could be.
It's sort of.
But I'm
died down
so
a lot
pleased.
after that collapse of the bridge, though.
I'm so pleased they did it.
First year they had all them sightings. Then after the bridge collapsed, you know, obviously that horrible tragedy, it was sort of like, I don't know, it was almost as if people went, oh, maybe we should knock this.
Yeah, it felt like disrespectful to keep talking about it or something.
Yeah,
that's it. But no, we love it though, and we're so glad that people made it up and it's become what it has, because it's one of those things now that's going to live. It was around before we were, and it will be around long after we're gone. That's how something can come from nothing. And as like Chris and I, as like artists, that's pretty much how we say that. Well, we like to get something and make something from nothing and see where it sort of takes off to. And when we see stuff like that, almost like cultural art, I mean, you know, it's almost like Mothman's invisible graffiti that everyone can enjoy, and it's like it's not hurting anybody. But it means so much to everyone at the same time. And that's how I feel about these ghost stories. And if people sit there and they're like, you know, but my life is looking into these, then keep on going. You're not wasting your time. All because I don't believe in it. You know, fill your boots. And I hope someone proves me wrong. I love finding new answers. But if someone also comes out and rules out indefinitely ghosts are not real, I'm not going to sit there and go, told you. I'll just be like, oh, okay, well, we know that one now. Yeah.
And think how boring.
Yeah, it all makes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, right. No, I was going along the same line you are. I was going to say it makes my life more interesting, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that about holidays too. I mean, like think about Christmas and Easter and and Halloween and these holidays that we celebrate. How boring would life be if we didn't have these to celebrate? I mean, I don't believe that a man goes down people's chimneys and gives people presents, but Christmas is still fun. It's still
real.
Nice to celebrate with your family.
Hey, there could be little kids listening.
Just because I don't believe it doesn't mean it's not real, okay? I just haven't seen the evidence that convinces me yet.
I mean, I don't know. I think I have evidence, so yeah.
Well, I'll actually be seeing
He's
Santa
more elusive
Claus
than
next week because I'm going Lapland.
He's more elusive than Bigfoot. There's fewer pictures of him than there are of Bigfoot.
Yeah. This is true.
My brother is obsessed with Bigfoot, and he'll always text me pictures, like new pictures that someone took of Bigfoot.
Some of them are awful, and some of them, like, I go on Reddit quite a bit, and I purposely follow like the cryptid pages and stuff, and people are posting up pictures all the time, and it'll be like a real blurry picture, and then these people are like doing like these red outlines. I go, yeah, that's where it is, and you're just like,
nothing.
That ain't shit. Like,
it's always a blurry picture. It's never
blurry.
crisp.
Always, no, it's always
Right.
blurry, blurry, and it's either really blurry or it's just so CGI'd. So CGI'd, and our very first episode was actually about Bigfoot. And there's a bloke, I can't remember his name, I think Todd Standing, I think I want to say his name is. He's one of, you know, these Bigfoot hunters or whatever you want to call it, and he's always one of these, I've got a new picture, and it's all right, here we go, let's have a look at this one. But it's so obviously fake. And I think he's so desperate to want to believe that.
Yeah, he's putting an image where there isn't anything.
Yeah. And and like some of his encounters, I kind of generally believe he probably maybe has. I'm not saying he's actually seen Bigfoot, but maybe when he was out in the woods, you know, he's experienced some things. But I think he just wants people to believe so much, he's sort of resorted to fake pictures.
You know, I used to think that Bigfoot was fake, and I was never into it. But I have to say, I've been kind of opening my mind up to the possibility, because Bobby and I interviewed someone who was like a Bigfoot hunter who had experiences, and he also wrote a book, and he had interviewed other people who had experiences. And then, of course, my brother's always sending me his evidence, but I don't know. I mean, is it really so impossible to think that there could be some undiscovered creature that lives, you know, deep in places where humans just don't live, and we just haven't ever fully been able to prove it?
I don't think it's impossible. The only thing I can't get behind is when people make out that Bigfoot has got portals and.
Oh, I was just going to get into that.
I don't think you've ever come. Well, yeah. Do you think he's got?
Yeah, I think he. I think he's a time jumper. I think he can travel in and out of dimensions, and maybe that's another reason why we haven't been able to capture him. But maybe he's an alien. I mean, who knows? And he has extra dimensional abilities.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I don't know. There's just so much. I'd love it to be real if it was real. I think it'd be fascinating. And I still can't make up my mind on that very original, you know, the Patterson and Gimlin footage, like the OG footage. I still can't work. Sometimes I look and go, so fake. Then other times I look, I'm like,
is that that famous picture of Bigfoot where it's actually, or it's a video of him walking, right? From far away video.
Yeah, it's from like the, I don't know, the 70s,
right.
Or it was the OG footage.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I can't. But then when you look into the whole Patterson and Gimlin thing, like the two people that done that original footage, like a few years before he got this footage, he was actually making a film about Bigfoot anyway. So you start adding it all up, and you're like, oh,
yeah, that kind of,
I don't know.
Changes things.
And there's people that obviously claim to have done the fake prints and stuff, and it's just yeah, I don't know. I'd love him to be real though.
For me, one of the ones that they bring up quite a lot is when people who were saying the Patterson Gimlin footage, because I'm like you, I look at it and I think, I don't know, you know, I don't know anything about cameras, I don't know anything about film disposition or
giant fuzzy costumes,
exposition or anything like that, editing. Yeah, I don't know anything about that shit. But when you see people sit there and they go, oh yeah, but all these like makeup artists and stuff like that for big time movies all come forward saying it's impossible. But as soon as you say to them, okay, who are these people?
Right.
Well, something they've not got names. Oh, I don't know. It was, I read it somewhere. Oh, okay. Brilliant. So you got no names. We've got nameless people making huge claims about stuff. So that's one of the. But at the same time, when I look at it and I think, well, some of these Hollywood movies back then that had budgets looks nothing like that. Like nowhere
the
near as
footage
good.
itself is pretty.
But then at the same time, the films. Yeah, the films, even if it's faked, it's like that's
they did a great job
fake. For the same reasons we were saying before. Like, look at the ripples in culture that is, and like now because of that little bit of footage, all these years later, we've still got people going through the woods looking for it. I think it's incredible. Good for them.
Yeah,
this is what sucks about all these.
It almost makes me feel like I really hope there's people out there doing the same thing. I want someone to come up with a new cryptid and be like, this is our footage. What do you think?
And so what sucks about all these paranormal things is that even if you see real, legit footage or evidence that someone brings to you, how can you ever know for sure if it's real or not? Like, you'll never, ever know.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you see it for yourself firsthand, you know?
Yeah.
Particularly with AI now.
Yeah, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
With AI and deep fakes, it's like, whoa, man. It's like you've seen those videos of like Joe Biden rapping Eminem and stuff. It's like, what is this? This is so mad. And so anything now that comes out, it's just like,
who knows?
What are we doing? It's cool. It's a scary but exciting time to be alive.
It's crazy. It's a crazy time. I don't know if we're blessed or cursed to live in this time because, I mean, it's just everything.
Both.
Everything's crazy. You just don't know what's real anymore.
No.
Yeah.
But
The lawyer is a Mothman.
You said the lawyer what? What did you say?
So we'll always have Mothman.
We'll always have Mothman.
We'll always have Mothman. Always.
Yeah.
No matter what happens. He'll be.
We love you, Mothman. Keep doing your thing.
So what was after Amityville?
Well, there's one more thing I want to tell you guys about Amityville, which is that so Butch DeFeo claimed at trial that he was hearing voices and he was demon possessed, and that's why he killed his family, right? Why would he say all those things? Why do you think he would say those things?
Was there probably try and get, I don't know if the death penalty was in that state or not, but maybe to
get a lighter sentence,
get off the deff penalty,
look better.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a thing.
Could.
If you claim, if he could just say, he's saying this stuff, and the doctors say, oh no, he's schizophrenic. I don't know if that warrants you.
Yeah, if that changes anything.
Getting off from the. Yeah, I'm not too sure, but that'll probably be the excuse I would use.
They didn't declare him mentally ill, huh?
No, he was never. I don't know if he ever went under any official psychiatric evaluation or anything like that, but no, he never, no one ever said he was a schizophrenic. Or the worst thing that people said about him was that he was a drug addict, and he was doing a lot of acid at the time. So I think some people kind of blamed it on that. But the thing that blew my mind about this documentary is that it explains that it's so complicated, but it's such an interesting story. So the DeFeo family actually had ties to the mafia. They were tied to the Genovese crime family on, I think, the DeFeo side of the family, and then some other crime family on the other side of the family. So they had these mafia ties, and Luis's father actually co-owned a car dealership with, I'm never gonna find his name, but it was some big mafioso guy. It was like a Caprone. What's the word? Caprone? Capo regime?
Caprone.
Something.
Yeah. I know.
You know what I'm trying to say? He was he was high up there in the mafia, and he co-owned this car dealership with Luis's dad, sorry. And then that's also where Ronald DeFeo Sr. worked. So they had all these, intricate ties with these mafia people. So when the murders happened and Butch DeFeo was arrested, at first he was claiming that it was an intruder. And then I think he came up with another story, and he said like his sister killed his dad, and then his mom killed his siblings, and then he killed his mom. So he had these different stories. But years after he was convicted, he told this documentary that his grandfather came to visit him in jail and convinced him to just take the rap and just say that he did it, because he didn't want the police to investigate, and he didn't want them looking at the family any more closely, because he didn't want them to discover the business and all these mafia ties that they had.
Yeah.
So, and I think he even told Butch, like, you know, if you take the rap and you take the fall for this, you'll be taken care of in prison, but just say that you did it. So that's when him and his lawyers came up with the whole, you know, I was possessed story. So
yeah. That's interesting. Is he still alive
he
today?
He just died a couple years ago. He died in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
In prison?
Yeah. Some
shotgun blast back of the head.
Right. No, I think he just died I think he had an aneurysm or something. I don't know. He wasn't that old. He was only in his 60s. I guess prison kind of wears you down. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that documentary.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Everyone should.
It sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's really good. And just like Amy was saying, Butch DeFeo would also put the Lutzes on blast later and say that, like, basically he already knew them before he got arrested. Like, they were kind of buddies from the bars, him and George Lutz. And they all came up with this plan for him to buy the house. And then they would say that it was haunted, and they would escape, and they would write this book. And they were supposed to share whatever profits they got with Butch DeFeo. But then they wound up going back on their word, and they just kept all the profits for themselves. So then he started speaking out against them. So yeah.
There's a whole lot going on with that.
You just don't know what to believe, do you?
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the whole story is bullshit. So. So yeah, that kind of ruined it for me. I really liked that Amityville story. It was a good book. The movies are good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the last case that I have to talk about, no, I'm sorry, I have two more, but we'll go quickly. Have you all heard of the Devil on Trial documentary that's on Netflix now?
I just saw that.
No.
Yeah.
It's just the devil made me do it.
Yeah, that case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I've not seen the documentary or anything, but I've heard little bits about this case.
Amy, did you watch it, or you've just seen the posters?
Yeah, I just watched
okay.
it. I thought it was good. No, it's definitely worth checking out. But that's another one where it's hard to. They start putting doubts in your head, right? Yeah. No matter which documentary you watch, whatever side you watch, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's evidence for
but
both
this is,
sides.
yeah. There it is.
Anytime the Warrens come in, I pretty much start to doubt the story. But so you guys know the basics that this family was haunted, and the little boy in the family was possessed by a demon, and they were all freaking out. They call the Warrens. The Warrens come to the house and help them to get the evidence they need to request a formal exorcism. So they actually did wind up getting a real exorcism from the church on this boy. And then a couple months later, the boy's older sister's boyfriend murders his landlord. And then when he goes to trial, they try to use the excuse of that he was possessed by a demon. And I think the judge actually said that he couldn't use that as an excuse, that they weren't going to do that. So he wound up, he wound up pleading temporary insanity or something like that. But he claimed that he didn't remember anything. And there, like Amy said, there are interesting things that kind of convince me that it could be, and then there's evidence that convinces me that it's not. But basically, the family was the two parents and then the older sister Debbie, and then there were three younger brothers, and David was the youngest, and he's the one who was possessed. I think he was 12 years old at the time. And then there was Arnie, the guy who murdered his landlord, who was Debbie's boyfriend. So Debbie and her boyfriend were moving into this new home, and the family was helping them to move in. And David said that he got a really bad feeling from the house right away, and he asked his mom if they could leave. And she said, "We'll leave after we unpack." So he went upstairs to unpack some boxes or whatever, and he said that he felt like he wasn't alone in the room. And then he said he was pushed onto the bed by something invisible, and he saw a demonic face just staring at him with these black eyes. And then for the rest of the night, he was trying to tell his family about it, and they kind of weren't believing him, and they were like, yeah, whatever. But he said that the demon kept telling him to beware, and when his brother asked him, beware of what, he said, he wants my soul. So that's an interesting thing for a 12-year-old to just say. And apparently he really believed it because he seemed genuinely scared. So I think that that's kind of interesting. Like, why would he make all of this up out of nowhere for no reason? But the family says that, I can't remember. Oh, I think it was a couple more weeks or days of David complaining about this demon. And the mom decided to call a priest to bless the house. And the night after the priest had blessed the house, the family said that the whole house was shaking, and they all ran into the parents' bedroom, and the house was shaking. And David was freaking out, and he was screaming, and he was saying, close the door, don't open the door. And he kept saying, he's here. And then after that, things just progressively kind of got worse. So a neighbor of theirs recommended to them that they call the Warrens, and they invite the Warrens to come check it out. And Ed Warren tells them they have a demon. And they really believed that David was possessed. So they started recording videos and audio of him to get evidence to be able to show the church so that they could get the exorcism. And so there are photos out there, and there's recordings, and there's videos you can watch they're pretty disturbing. I mean, they are kind of scary because you see David like writhing around on the floor, and he's screaming, and he's cursing, and he's, calling his parents names and stuff. But, then again, is it just a kid with issues who's faking it, or does he just have something mental going on? So who knows?
I know there's some like audio clips and footage of that German girl, Annalise. Annalise.
I can't remember the last name.
She had something ridiculous like 60 odd exorcisms.
Yeah, 68.
Yeah, didn't she wind up like starving to death or something?
Yeah. So she had epilepsy, and she had some other things going on, and right. I've seen some. We watched some footage of that, and it is horrible to watch.
They basically tortured her for a few months.
Right.
Well, they did essentially, yeah.
And it's like everyone feeds into her delusions, right? Because she thinks she's possessed, and the family was hyper religious, so they believed that she was possessed, and so it's like they're feeding off of each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a sad case.
Yeah, and Annalise McCall, was it?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Something like that. Yeah. I don't know if there was anything similar with this young 12-year-old boy. I don't. So on the documentary, what are the arguments that are so like poo-pooing it then?
Well, his own brother, Carl, said the whole thing was fake, and he did not believe his brother was possessed. He was saying that, there'd be times where David would be having what was, a demonic episode. And the dad actually didn't believe it either, is what it sounded like in the documentary. So like the dad would come out and yell at David and tell him to knock it off, and David would stop.
Yeah.
So, they seemed the dad, I believe, thought that David was just mentally ill, so he did not believe it was a demonic possession. But
could even be a bit of attention seeking.
Yeah.
And I think I even read that David actually was put like into or sent somewhere, and he improved. But it's interesting. Yeah, his older brother Carl does not believe any of it. He said the Warrens actually came to the house and they would sit there and talk in front of David about things that could occur, like, oh, he may start hissing, he may start growling. And so,
exactly.
Yeah,
and then he starts doing it.
That's your cue.
Exactly. And so Carl was saying, oh, of course, right after that, David starts hissing, he starts growling. Like, yeah. So he did not believe it. And he said he felt that the Warrens actually came and ruined the family's lives. Like, I think they wrote a book and they said the family was going to be rich. And I think I read that the Warrens made like 80. The Warrens made 81,000, and then the boys' family made 4,800. So I think Carl actually tried to sue them later on, but it was dismissed. But I think what was also interesting in the documentary, they talk about how he found like a diary that the mother had been keeping. And I guess apparently she was actually putting Sominex in everyone's food, which is like a sleeping pill. And he said like she would eat her food separately from everyone else. But one of the side effects of Sominex is hallucinations. So, there's that part of it that, okay, all the stuff that was happening to David is that because of all the Sominex he had been, taking. So, that is also another, of course, you watch the documentary and, it's usually one-sided and, you start to, okay, then maybe he wasn't really possessed. So I'd have to watch another documentary with, showing that, he was definitely possessed, and I maybe changed my mind. But after seeing this one, I'm like, I don't know about that one. I
do find the possession things quite fascinating, but I know sometimes, a lot of the time, it is sort of put down to mental disorder. I'm not saying that is the case with this one. He may well have truly been possessed. Again, I'd have to watch a few documentaries on it.
What's interesting about possessions is that they only ever seem to happen to people who are super religious. So why is that? I wonder.
Yeah.
Right, because isn't it technically you would think it would happen to people that
aren't religious,
don't believe, right? Yeah, but it does always seem like super religious. And aren't they usually Catholics too? I mean, all the ones that I've seen, they're always Catholic.
So it's almost like they have some sort of like a paranoia, a religious paranoia, and they just think that they're not a good enough person or whatever. They're scared of whatever, and then maybe they've got some mental issues going on and they just associate it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating though. But I definitely am not discounting any of the demonic possessions. I actually do believe that people are going through that and have been legitimately possessed, in my own opinion. Just as far as this one, I'm not quite sure about that one though.
Well, the interesting part about this case is, do you think Arnie Johnson was possessed? Because after they did the exorcism on David, supposedly Arnie was telling the demon, leave him alone, pick on someone your own size, whatever. And then he became
He said, come into me.
Yeah,
is what
like
he
take
said.
me.
Yeah, you know what? I don't believe that for one second. I do not believe that he was possessed, because I think I even heard that he was like a very jealous boyfriend.
Yeah,
and
there's stories.
That possibly he suspected there was something going on between his girlfriend and the landlord that he killed.
But the Warrens did, after the exorcism, the Warrens actually went to the Brookfield police and they warned them about Arnie, and they said, hey, something bad might happen involving this guy, so watch out. So I think that that's interesting that, even before the murder happened, the Warrens had already gone to the police and told them about Arnie. But yeah,
that is interesting.
And then there's also
point.
After he murdered his landlord, when the police found him, they said that he was just walking on the side of the highway, kind of like dazed. And when they stopped him and told him what had happened, he didn't remember any of it. He said he didn't remember. He actually didn't even believe them at first. They told him that he had killed his friend or his landlord or whatever. And he was like, no, I didn't. Like, what are you talking about? But, you know, who knows if he genuinely didn't remember it or not. So
that's a tough one, because I think actually the family was behind him for the most part. I don't know about Carl, but it sounded like none of them believed that they all did believe he was possessed, and people said it was so like out of his character, I guess. So, I mean, yeah, that's a tough one.
It's on Netflix, isn't it? But...
Yeah. Was it the Devil Made Me? What's it called?
The Devil
on Trial.
Devil
I think
on
is what
Trial. That's it.
Devil on Trial. Yeah.
There's a part where
that'll be another one to my watch list.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. And especially if you don't know anything about the case, like I had heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I only know tiny little bits about it. Yeah, so.
But there is a really funny part where, and Amy kind of already got into this, but the older brother Carl said that one night David was having one of his episodes, and he was writhing around on the floor and screaming and cussing out his mom, and the mom was, I think there's actually a recording of it. You can hear the mom saying, "Leave my son alone, leave my son alone." And then the dad comes out and picks David up and smacks him on the face and says, "Knock it off." And then Carl, the older brother Carl, says, well, it's just interesting because after that he went and just sat on the couch and was quiet. So, you know, it seems like this demon was kind of afraid of our dad.
Yeah. Right. So that's all it takes is the dad
knock it off.
Has to rough him up a little bit.
Oh, fuck,
that takes care of that.
Oh, it's gone now, the demon.
Yeah, you don't need an exorcist. Just have dad participate a little bit more, you know?
Just needs some discipline.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more case, guys. This is the last one I have. Have any of you seen the Haunting in Connecticut movie?
A long time ago.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a good one. I like that movie. But this movie is based off of the Snedeker family. And, you know, it's exaggerated, obviously, but a lot of it is true. So the Snedekers bought this house in Connecticut in the 80s. And basically, their older son had Hodgkin's disease. And so they were trying to find a home that was closer to the hospital where he was getting his treatments. So they found this home, and it's a big, beautiful house. I mean, you could look it up online. And they move in, and then they find out that the house used to be a funeral home, and they find all this stuff in the basement that was left there. Like they find like what's that called? Like you know where they do autopsies, those tables where they do like autopsies and stuff.
Oh,
yeah, like a slab or whatever. They find one of those. They find like a coffin hoist and like all these tools or whatever that they would use. So the family finds out that it was a funeral home. And after that, things started happening in the house. The son, who was going through treatment, started having hallucinations, and he would see people in the house that weren't there. And they said that his personality changed, and he became really like isolated and like aggressive and angry. And then the family lived with, so it was the mom, the dad, the son, and then two of their nieces lived with them. So the girls were also seeing things. The younger girl said that she would see people in the house, and she said that at night she would see 3 people standing around her bed. And lights would flicker in the house, and, you know, they'd hear noises and whatever. But at first, the parents really weren't, you know, they weren't paying attention to it. They didn't care. But then the mom, Carmen, started experiencing things. So she said that she would feel like people touching her. Some other weird things would happen. Like I think she was mopping the floor and the water turned into blood or whatever. And So they call the Warrens, and the Warrens come to the house and they do their investigation. And Lorraine Warren basically tells the family that, yes, the house used to be a funeral parlor, but the owner of the funeral parlor was like abusing the bodies. And so these spirits were restless and they were angry because of that. So that's their story, you know. But
yeah, supposedly there was necrophilia going on.
Yeah, that's what they said.
They said.
Is that like for fact? Like, is it on record that was the case? Or is it just the Warrens coming up?
That's
with
just
something
Lorraine.
from
That
their book of
That's just
excuses?
Lorraine's psychic abilities telling us that.
Yeah, that's what
That's
she
what
said.
she said.
Yeah, that is another tough one.
Well, there's more.
You know, I mean, I think there was stuff going on. Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Carmen and her niece said that they would feel people like groping them. And then, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at this, but the husband and the wife both said that they were raped and sodomized by these entities at night in their beds. So obviously things were getting worse and worse.
I thought the shark was bad.
See, you want to change your answer now, right? But they called the Warrens. The Warrens tell them all this stuff, and they do like a blessing on the house. And Carmen says that during this blessing, it was like there was like a tornado in the house, and just the whole house was moving and shaking and windows rattling. But then all of a sudden it was quiet and peaceful. And so I guess the negative energy had left. And she said after that, they still kind of felt like there was a presence there, but it just wasn't like a malevolent present. It was like the good spirits left. So, but I want to see what you guys think. And then I want to tell you what their landlady had to say about it. So what do you guys think?
All I'm getting in my head is images of a little lady going, "This house is clean."
No, you're way off.
Yeah, I just the way, I don't know. It's just whenever these Warrens get involved, I don't know, man. It's just they have a way of stumbling into these things, don't they?
Yeah, and just making everything worse. It seems like things
Seems to be a trend, doesn't it?
Things just get worse.
Fuck it up even more, and then let's make a book.
Exactly. Let's embellish the story a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
I kind of feel sorry for the actual people in a way, because what if, let's say, like, these hauntings and possessions are actually happening? You've got Ed and Warren turning up going, "This is what's happening. We'll write it all down. We'll take a load of money. Cheers very much." So, okay, but what's happening with the family that needs help still? Are they okay? Are they still being tormented? Is there still hauntings? Have these people been helped? You know, it doesn't seem like. I don't know. And it's like, why do they need a priest to come bless the house? If it's that simple, just every town's got a priest. Just call up and be like, "All right, I'm really sorry about this. You may not believe in it, but yeah. And I can't imagine Ed and Lorraine doing it for free either."
Well,
I think I read they did do it for free, actually.
Oh, that's
and
okay.
They said that sometimes they would actually use some of the money from the book proceeds, and they would actually help some of the families. So there is that.
I've heard
that little arrangement. We'll make it look like charity afterwards. Yeah, good one.
I've heard the opposite. I've heard that these families felt
afterwards.
kind of taken advantage of and used by the Warrens in a lot of cases. And
I'm sure they weren't, they probably could have done their own thing and made all the money and not the Warrens gave them. Yeah. I mean, I have heard that too. But this is the case where they did they write a... Oh, no, they didn't write the book. Somebody else wrote a book. Yeah, Ray Garton, I think it's called In a Dark Place. And he's the one that actually came out and said he was having trouble writing the book because the family members were all on drugs. So all of their stories were completely inconsistent. And so when he told Ed Warren this, that's when he said, hey, all these people are crazy. Do what you have to do to finish the story, make it as scary as you could possibly be. So, that's a tough one. And then he also said that they switched from being ghost hunters to demons after the Exorcist movie came out.
Demonology,
So, I guess.
The Warrens also, they wouldn't charge the families, like they wouldn't charge them anything for their quote unquote help, but they made money off their books. They got, eventually they would get movie deals.
There was a contract.
Yeah. And also they would be paid to like go on tours and like speak at colleges and do, speeches and stuff. So their fees for that went up the more famous they got. So they were making money for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but all of that aside, why would they lie?
What's the motive?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they might have started off with honest intentions, and then by like the 70s when they started getting popular, I feel like the fame might have got to their heads a bit, and they started just sort of, let's just
TV appearances.
Let's add these bits.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it too. Like maybe in the beginning they genuinely wanted to help people and they were genuinely interested in this ghost stuff, but the more famous they got, the more they wanted to be famous and make money. So kind of use it.
Yeah. They were definitely master self-promoters. Yes. But I mean, I believe they did have a lot of knowledge, and I do believe that they believed in what they did. But like you said, I just think as time went on, they started getting a little bit greedy, and I don't know, maybe just didn't have the best intentions as that continued to happen.
Yeah. Whether you love them or hate them, they were like the pioneers of paranormal investigations.
Yeah,
that's true.
Absolutely.
Like they opened the door for people to be interested in this stuff, and they made it more like or less taboo, I guess, to be talked about. So that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what to make of that last case.
It's just like,
there's always something though, isn't there? It's like, oh, this happened, but it turns out the families are just an absolute massive crackheads, like all of them. And it's like,
and there's no evidence.
Do you know what I mean? There always seems to be
when Ed and Lorraine Warren come in and say, oh, it's this. Like, I mean, she came in and said the funeral parlor was abusing the corpses. There's nothing to say that. She literally just I'm not going to say she made it up, but there's nothing to support that. She's just telling people that. No. So.
Yeah. I mean, it may well have happened.
She made it up.
I mean, you said it.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure, we're going through the most famous and maybe the controversial ones, but I'm sure with as many cases that they investigated, there's also ones where people have said, oh yeah, they came in and helped me, and my life changed for the better. So
that's true.
I mean, we didn't go into any of those stories, but I'm sure that with as many as they were involved in, they probably did help some people. But I mean, I guess one weird thing, another maybe exaggeration on their part, was they said they helped they did 10,000 cases or something.
Yeah, I thought I read 100,000 or something. And it's like, you don't have time to do all of that. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. If you did one case a day, and it's 10,000 cases, like I did the math, that's like over 27 years. Yeah. You're not taking any time off. And I would imagine that doing investigations like this probably last a lot longer than one day. So while I don't doubt that they did work on a lot of cases, 10,000, or I don't know, like you said, maybe it's 100. I read 10,000
because that's way crazy.
That's still, 100,000.
No way.
To me, that sounds impossible. But even 10,000 sounds a little impossible to me. I don't know. That's just me personally. So I do think there was a lot of exaggeration on their part, but I don't doubt that they probably helped a lot of people.
Yeah, 10,000 sounds ridiculous. That sounds like a bloke's exaggeration as well. I reckon Ed was behind that figure. That's not a woman's exaggeration. That's a bloke's exaggeration. I'm telling you
I
now.
think he is the one that said it. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Makes sense.
It'd be interesting to know what James Randi thought of the Warrens, because he was great. He was great. He dedicated his life to debunking like supernatural fraudsters and stuff. He's also known as the Amazing.
Was he around the same time as them?
And I'm
sure
he only died recently. He was 92. It was only a few years ago that he passed away. But he was like, he went after like loads of people. Like, there's a great documentary about him on YouTube. I can't remember what it's called now, but
he went after Uri Geller, didn't he?
Like Uri Geller, that spoon bender guy, and like, you know, he was like after him all the time, and he went after loads of like different evangelists who claimed they could help you, like they heal you with the power of Jesus. He went after loads of them. So I'd be amazed to know what he thought of the Warrens.
Oh, they
if he had any opinions on them.
They definitely had critics, and there's actually a society. I can't remember what it's called. I know it's NESS, something skeptical society, and that's literally what they do is they try to like disprove all this paranormal stuff with like reasonable explanations.
Is that the New England?
New England Society for Psychic Research.
Well, that's the one that Ed and Lorraine founded.
Something.
But then there's another one.
I've heard about those guys.
There's another one that's the Skeptical Society,
right.
and they literally would just go after Ed and Lorraine Warren and try to debunk every single one of their claims and their cases. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's the one about Ed had supposedly taken a video of a ghost in the cemetery. And so an interviewer from it's called the Skeptical Society. Yeah, I think that's it. He asked if Ed could send him the video or, I don't know, picture or whatever. And Ed refused. The only way they could see it is if they went over there and he showed it to them in person.
Paid admission to the museum, and then you could have a look at the picture.
Yeah, like they wanted to shadow them on investigations, and Ed would not allow it. So kind of have to wonder about that. Like, why not just allow them to come so you could prove them
why
wrong?
Don't you just let them see the evidence?
Yeah, just telling them no, that just kind of fuels the you just don't believe it.
There was another guy from the Skeptical Society or whatever, and he said that, you know, any time that Ed and Lorraine Warren had like a recording and there would be like a malfunction with the device, they would be like, oh, that's impossible. It's a demon or it's a ghost messing with the tape recorder. And they were like, no, that happens all the time. Like the thing just malfunctions. Like it's normal. So
yeah. That's what we're going to have to start saying whenever we have technical difficulties.
Oh my God, that's a good idea. Get more listeners.
Yeah.
Well, the same with that Todd Standing guy I mentioned earlier, the Bigfoot and stuff. The amazing stuff always seems to happen when his camera's off. It's like, oh, you guys missed it. And it's like, I've got the camera on now, but it's not going on now. But you should have seen. Oh, it was crazy. It's like,
these ghosts and these Bigfoots always seem to know when the camera's pointing at them, and they know when to.
They're so smart.
Blur mode activate.
But see, maybe he just jumps into one of his portals,
turning on their predator armor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so for the Snedeker case, the landlady, I just think this is so funny. So the landlady came out after they released their book, and I think they did a few interviews, and they also did like a Discovery Channel documentary about the case. And the landlady came forward and said that she thought the whole story was ridiculous. She said that no one who lived there before or after the Snedekers had any complaints. And then she also said, I guess she said that the family had lived there for 2 years, and I guess that being raped by demons wasn't a good enough reason for them to break their lease. So I kind of have to side with the landlady on that one. It's kind of suspicious.
Yeah. And it does say in the lease, like, if you get raped by demons, it's not my problem. Yeah.
Get your deposit back.
If anything, that's a perk. Yeah. You ever see that movie, The Entity, where that lady's getting raped by ghosts and stuff?
That's the scariest movie. Yeah,
that was
that's the
loosely
one.
based on a true story. The lady said she was getting raped a lot by ghosties and stuff, and her kids were saying that they were watching as these ghosts were raping her, and they were like tearing her clothes off, and they were like, "Her mum's not going to tear her clothes off," and start screaming and rolling around, pretending to be fucked in front of us.
This really happened?
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
God.
It's really, it's really,
that's
really
the one.
crazy one.
Remember when we were talking about our top 5 horror movies? I said that was number 1 on my list.
Yes, I still haven't watched it.
As one of the most terrifying.
I need to.
Yeah.
Damn good
what is
film.
it based off of again?
Yeah.
What's the case?
It's hard to find.
It's Doris Bither.
Oh, okay. Doris Bither.
And she's Culver City.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, Culver City is supposed to be haunted, so. I mean.
Oh, well, there you go.
That checks out.
Yeah. No, it, I thought it was one of the scariest movies that I've ever seen. I don't know how it's held up with the test of time. That was 1983, but I still cannot bring myself to watch that movie because I thought it was so terrifying. So I don't know. Check it out and see. I don't know. Maybe it's cheesy nowadays, but I thought it was absolutely.
I've got it on DVD.
Oh, that pounding music every time something happens is like just adds to the intensity of the story. So
yeah, they recorded that by rattling a headboard apparently. So it's like the sound of sex, but they're using it within the soundtrack and stuff, like a soundscape, and just like making it deeper. But so
that's
little
not
things
scary.
like that. It's a really good film, but it holds up really well. I watched it literally a few months ago, and the way they do it, like you can see the invisible hands on her body groping her. It's done really, really well. It's a very good film.
Good. I'll have to check it out again when I am brave enough. But I mean, I think Martin Scorsese said one of the most terrifying, to his top 10 of most terrifying movies. So definitely add that to your list.
And it's got boobies in it, so everyone wins.
Well, I mean, yeah, but not in like a sensual situation, though. Do you really want to see boobs under those
being raped by ghosts?
Boobs is boobs, still counts.
Well, I don't think they were real boobs though, because they had to use a prosthetic and the hands going over, so they were fake boobs.
Still counts.
Now I really want to see this movie.
Men don't care if they're fake. Yeah,
they did look
really
real.
Don't care.
Yeah,
men don't care if they're fake.
Okay.
It can be written on them, made in China, and we'll still stare at them and be like, "It's fine."
That's hilarious. Okay, yeah. So check it out for Barbara Hershey's fake boobs in the movie. Yeah,
fake boobs and demon sex. Everything you knew right there.
The movie.
Yep. Yeah.
And the color blue. That's a lot in the movie. Everything's blue.
Yeah, the cover is blue. I just looked it up.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
A lot of blue filters.
To make it scary.
Yeah, really good. So that's maybe, possibly. The dude in it with a beard.
Ron Silver.
Yes, Ron Silver. There you go. Chris, Ron Silver. That's your boy. He was in Time Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember?
Brilliant film, Time Cop.
Yeah. Yeah,
mate. The one with Jean-Claude?
Yeah, the one and only.
Yeah. It's a bit like Looper, but way better.
I don't work out if I've seen this Entity film or not.
Oh, it's good, man. It's worth it. Well, when you come down, it's hard to get older because they don't stream it everywhere because Britain's still a bit. Britain's still a bit funny about putting it out. But next time you're down, mate, I'll chuck the DVD at your head and you can take that back with you, and you and Colby can have a film night.
His son? Is that his son?
Yeah,
he's 10.
Yeah,
father of son
not a family movie.
Yeah, it's called Tentity. It's perfect.
Cute. So, what's the verdict, you guys? What do we think of the Warrens? Were they legit?
Well, I'm 100% sold.
We convinced you, yes. You're a believer.
Demons all the way.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of very, very clever con people, but but like I say, that's going by what I've seen, heard, and read, and sort of looked at. But at the same time, you can't deny the history that's come of it, and just like the ripples it's made. This is how legends come out, you know, and it's just one of those things. And who knows, maybe in like 300 years when this story gets distorted and who knows what else, they'll be deified as some amazing saints or something. Who knows?
You never know.
That is
You
true.
know, anything could happen.
Oh.
I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor. Who saw that?
Hey, he wasn't bad, okay?
That's very true.
He was a good guy. He was an okay governor.
He's been a bit... Yeah, he done all right.
From what I remember.
He was in Predator and the Terminator. Of course he was a good
guy. You can't go wrong.
All his accomplishments.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the man had it going. But yeah, for me, I'm not convinced on any of the ghost hunting stuff, because for me, it's hard enough to get me to believe in ghosts. And when you start bringing demons into it, I don't know. My mind immediately goes to Ghostbusters.
Can't take
there's no one here, only Zool, and I just think, yeah, okay, yeah. And it's like you say, it's like they didn't get into demon stuff until after The Exorcist came out, which again, fantastic movie. And it was the same with like a lot of these alien abductions as well, when they were describing what the aliens looked like and things like that. It's like, well, it was only after Close Encounters of the Third Kind that people started using this description. And it keeps happening, and it's okay, well, whatever next, you know. And it's the same with the whole Slender Man thing as well, you know, which again, I love the whole Slender Man thing. It's great fun. It's an urban myth, and like we like the Bunny Man as well. That's a cool one, but they're just cool stories. And I think when people get too much into it, it's like, don't take the fun out of it, you know, because when people start looking for it to be real, that's when people start finding the holes. And it's like, just let it be a story that people are like, yeah, let's not get hung up on things like evidence and shit like that. Sometimes a fun story is just a fun story. You know, there's bridges of trolls living under them, and there's a lake with a dinosaur in it. Let's just
leave it at that.
You know, enjoy the magic.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I didn't really
what about you, Chris?
think about the...
That's sort of the same for me. Bit like what I said earlier on, I think they probably started off with honest intentions, and I just think fame got to their head, and in a way, I don't really blame them.
Money's money, mate.
Yeah, money's money, and obviously, a scary book's going to sell more than... a book that ain't scary, you know, that's the whole point. So I don't really blame them for it in a way, but at the same time, it's not necessarily right, is it?
Well, if people's lives got ruined, that's where because any other time I'd be like, oh, well, where's the harm? Who gives a fuck? But when you've got people coming forward saying these people ruined our lives, and it's drawn like a lot of these families don't talk to each other because of the backlash and the fallout from it all. And, you know, it's, can't really get in on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a bit different if they, you know, they were using these... You know, if they'd done it as their own sort of fiction novel or whatever, but where they're sort of, saying, oh, yeah, you know, this is what happened or whatever. Just, I don't know. But, you know, like you said, you can't deny what they've done for the community, whether you love them or hate them. So,
their names are in the history books now.
Yeah, that's it, for better or for worse, you know.
I almost feel like they ruined it, because they did get the publicity to the stories, which got the stories not fame, I don't want to say that, but I mean, it got the family's story out. But at the same time, it's like they kind of came in and ruined it, because it doesn't seem like they were totally honest and credible. And I wonder what would have happened if they had never been involved. Would these cases still have gained some attention just for being what they were? without the Warrens having to come in and add to it. And then maybe people would even take it more seriously. But then on the other hand, they were so famous at that time for being these ghost hunters that, it did draw a lot of attention and people did really believe it. So what do you think, Amy? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like hearing the stuff about, all the exaggerations and ruining people's lives, but you definitely cannot discredit what they've done for the field and, making it more just a mainstream thing. Like people were probably more ridiculed in the past, but them coming out and, having this out in the media and I think maybe people feel more comfortable talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they are definitely important contributors. So I don't think I don't discount that as far as that's concerned. I think they're important.
That's true.
They've got their place in history.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's cool.
I wonder if they really believed their own stories. Like, I wonder if they really genuinely believed that all these cases were demon possessed, or I wonder if they kind of knew what they were doing.
They were rolling on their bed naked with all the money.
Exactly.
Just throwing it in the air and laughing.
Suckers.
I feel like
the fool.
Scrooge diving into the fucking...
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I personally feel like they probably didn't believe all of it, but any little thing, of course, they're going to go the route of, oh yeah, it's a haunting, or oh, you're possessed.
The old dollar signs all lit up in their eyes, and
rubbing their hands together.
Don't know, in one of the movies, they try to make them seem a bit more legit, like they show Ed fixing someone's pipe or something, going, oh, this happens all the time. And it's like, he wouldn't have done that. He would have turned up and been like, yeah, that's a ghost in the pipes, 100%. Yeah, you got demon babies in your pipes, love. You could get the part, but they ain't in.
Won't be till next week.
Yeah, and if I get one from the van, that's all the way over there, So,
yeah,
it's what it is.
But it was interesting. It was definitely fun.
I feel like the more you look into it, the more boring of a story it is, because you kind of realize, like, oh, they made it all. Not all of it, but they made the interesting parts up. So,
yeah.
But it makes for good entertainment. I mean, look at the Conjuring series.
Those are good movies.
Hey, without them, we wouldn't have these fantastic movies. So
that's true.
We're talking about it today.
Yeah, that's
as well.
true.
If they weren't interesting, we wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a great one. And that's one of those ones as well. Like growing up in England, you always heard about the Enfield House and stuff, because there would always be documentaries on TV, and they were saying we'll remember the most haunted case in England, and because they're constantly showing the newspaper clippings from the Daily Mail and the Sun and stuff like that, and you can see even in your mind's eye, you can remember the photos of the street outside and the girl jumping on the bed, and because we all know she was jumping, and just that kind of stuff. It's just but like I say, it's even if it is all bollocks, it's bollocks that actually happened, if that makes sense. These people the people involved are real people. I love it. It's great, and I'm glad we have these kinds of stories, and that we have these kinds of conversations about said stories. Was there anything you needed to add there, Chris, my friend?
No, not really, mate. To be honest with you.
Well, I think our first episode with our first female guest has gone very well.
Oh, we're the first female guest?
Yeah.
You are indeed.
Wow. What? I know.
Showing our diversity.
That's awesome.
I know.
Yeah, it was a good good episode, you guys. I think we cracked the case. And it was fun.
Yeah, where's our movie?
Yeah, well, we didn't change Chris or Aaron's minds or anything like that, but it made for some good conversation. and it's always fun to hear the other alternative beliefs. So it was good.
That's why we do this. So it's
Yep.
and it's great when our guests turn up and they've got all the work for us. Brilliant. So as far as I'm concerned, any other future guests listening, the bar's been set now. You've got to try and beat Strange Darkness Radio because they turned up with all the gear. I mean, how long have we been recording for?
I think 2 hours.
Oh my God, 3 hours?
3 hours, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think 10 minutes was probably us waffling on just beforehand.
Yeah. Our guests don't normally bring that much homework.
No.
It was
well, good job, Carolyn, with the all the homework.
Thank you. Yeah, some of these cases really could be an entire.
Well done, ladies.
Huh? Some of these cases could have been an entire episode on their own, so it's kind of hard to pick what to discuss and what not to. But yeah, guys, thanks for having us on. It was fun. I hope we can do this again and bring other topics to the table.
It'll be interesting to do some, obviously you got the Warrens. I don't know if there's any other well-known
demonologists.
We could find some.
Maybe they're a bit more, not common. No, I don't know. I don't know. But it'll be interesting because
we should do an episode on the Mothman or Bigfoot or something. Well, you guys already covered him, but
we've always got time for Mothman
and Bigfoot. We revisit stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So we're happy
sure
to
Bobby
revisit
always
things.
new evidence.
Yeah, no, and I know Bobby was bummed to miss today, so I'm sure he would definitely be down for that. So
honestly, any cryptid, absolutely love them.
Yeah, we love a deep dive, and this was a really good one. Yeah, there was a lot of info, so really cheers to both of you for bringing all of that.
And I've got a couple of things added to my watch list now.
Yeah, definitely.
So. Oh, nice.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for having us on. And I hope you liked it, and I hope we can have you on our show, and I hope that we can all get together again. And it's always nice to have skeptics to bring their
ruin the party.
There you go. With your logic.
No, it's
turn
nice
up and
just
shit in the dip.
It's nice just having conversation where whatever side of the argument you're on, just having a conversation about it and just being adults about it.
Yeah. No, exactly. No arguing here, just sharing of opinions. So
exactly.
It was good. Yeah.
And people are always saying how adult me and Chris are. You know what I mean? Oh, you can't keep people from saying about how adult they are.
Podcast is very low key and very serious. I like that. You guys keep it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very highbrow.
Highbrow.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Us too. So
we have moustaches, don't you know? Oh, yes. So where can people find your podcast?
So we're on any platform that you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We also post our stuff on YouTube, and it's all going to be under Strange Darkness Radio. We also have an Instagram account if you'd like to follow us there, Facebook, and Podbean. Podbean is a new one, so you can find our stuff there. So anywhere you get your podcasts.
Excellent. I'll leave a few links in the description. I'll leave one for your Anchor page and your YouTube one, so people can find you.
Thank you.
Through those mediums. And anything else you guys needed to add before you went? Any shout outs to anybody or anything?
Shout out to Bobby, who wasn't here. And then also, just before I let you guys go, or we let you guys go, we're going to be posting this as well. So do you mind telling people where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, of course.
For our end.
Yeah, it's just like Spotify, really, isn't it?
Spotify,
pretty much our main two.
It's on.
We're on Apple and all that.
We're on Apple. Pretty much same as you. I think most platforms. I think Spotify is the main one that people.
Yeah, we're not on YouTube, but
not on YouTube, but we're on Instagram. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter. We was on there. What was the one that Instagram done? That was like Twitter.
Oh, Threads.
It was on Threads for I think all of 5 minutes. But yeah, Twitter and Instagram, we're on them, so you can find us. Semi-Skeptic podcast. Type that in, you'll find us. You'll find us. You can't miss us. I mean, look at us.
You guys are hilarious. So yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We try our best. So thank you very much for coming on. We finally managed to make it happen, and it's been wonderful.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah. Thank you
very
guys.
much. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Ethel, do you know where you are?
My body.
You're fast over. You died.
No. Everything, my body, they took it. It's torn.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
We learned that for the past 8 years, military pilots frequently encountered unknown objects in controlled airspace off both the east and west coast across the continental United States in test and training areas and ranges. We don't know where they come from, who made them, or how they operate.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the SA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh, thing, dude.
Cleveland County 911.
I don't know if I should have called this in or not, but
What's going on?
if I'd had my camera, I took a picture of it.
Took a picture of who?
I don't know what it was. He's walking upright like a man. I would not kill it because I was afraid to. But he went back up the mountain.
Cleveland County 911.
Hello.
Can I help you?
Yes. This is Tim.
Uh-huh.
You probably have my address.
Yes, sir. What's going on now?
I shined a light on this thing. Well,
And what did it look like?
it looked like a giant ape with a man's face. But I was afraid to kill it. And it made a whistling sound. He was about 9-10 foot tall with real long arms. I go out there, he gets gone. Now I come back in the house, and he gets back there again, and my dogs are just raising heck. Would I get in any trouble if I shot and killed this beast, this animal, or whatever it is? Would I get in any trouble?
I can't answer that question.
If he goes too close to me, I'm gonna kill him.